Felt, what did you steal from Reinhard? After the interlude of meeting Mimi, Nitsuki Subaru and Emilia continued their stroll through the bustling streets of the royal capital. The banners of the shops lining both sides of the street fluttered gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the fragrance from flower shops. Back in the royal capital again, it feels like nothing much has changed. Nitsuki Subaru relaxed his pace, his gaze sweeping over the familiar streetscape, a faint smile playing on his lips. However, the only thing that might have changed was perhaps himself. After all, with the system upgrade and attribute enhancements, his own strength was a far cry from what it used to be. Importantly, he possessed knowledge of the future, which allowed him to plan ahead. First is the white whale subjugation. I must ensure it's foolproof. Nitsuki Subaru quickly sorted through his memories. According to the original work, this battle would unfold about a week after the royal selection began. At that time, Emilia's faction would form a temporary alliance with Anastasia's and Crush's factions to jointly subjugate the White Whale, one of the three great mabeasts that had ravaged the world for 400 years. It's important to know that the White Whale was one of the three great mabeasts, rampaging for 400 years and causing countless disasters. According to the original records, the specific location where the White Whale appeared was near the Flugel tree on the Lifos Plains. The subjugation members consisted of multiple factions, including Crush's private army, former members of the Drozdov squad, Wilhelm the Sword Demon, the Iron Fang mercenaries, Rem, and Nitsuki Subaru, totaling over 200 people. This battle heralded the demise of the mabeast White Whale, made Nitsuki Subaru famous overnight, and greatly changed the public's perception of Emilia's faction. Of course, Crush's faction and Anastasia's faction, who participated in the subjugation, also gained immense prestige. Subjugating the White Whale would be very beneficial for Emilia as a royal candidate, so he had to participate in this battle and also establish alliances with those other candidates. Yes, it's settled. Nitsuki Subaru mused to himself. This time, I will definitely protect everyone's smiles. Subaru. Emilia's gentle voice pulled Nitsuki Subaru back to reality. You've been spacing out since just now. Ah, it's nothing. Nitsuki Subaru quickly adjusted his expression, revealing a relaxed smile. I was just thinking about what to eat tonight. Is that so? Emilia blinked her amethyst-like eyes with a hint of doubt. The two continued to walk forward, and Emilia suddenly spoke. By the way, Subaru, what happened at the loot house last time is still quite concerning. Felt was suddenly taken away by Reinhard. Even though we had already agreed not to pursue their responsibility. The real reason was that Reinhard discovered Felt was prophesied to be one of the king candidates, so he took Felt away to protect her and have her participate in the royal selection. Nitsuki Subaru thought to himself, but on the surface, he put on a puzzled look and said. Yeah, it was too sudden. Why don't we go visit Reinhard? We can thank him in person for last time and also ask about Felt's situation. You know, this was a good opportunity to get closer to Reinhard. After all, Reinhard was the strongest among all sword saints, possessing power at the pinnacle of this other world, capable of confronting the Witch of Envy, Satella, head-on, with their compatibility making it difficult to determine a winner. If he could ally with such a powerful ally, it would definitely be of great help in the future fight against the witch cult. Moreover, Reinhard had indeed helped him and Emilia a lot before, so it was only right and proper to thank him formally. Subaru's suggestion is very thoughtful. Emilia nodded lightly, then looked at Nitsuki Subaru curiously. However, Subaru seems to be particularly concerned about Reinhard. Well, Nitsuki Subaru winked mysteriously at Emilia, deliberately drawing out his tone. After all, Reinhard is the current sword saint, possessing the strongest power in the kingdom. It's never a bad thing to have a good relationship with him. And I always feel that things between him and Felt aren't that simple. Maybe we can find out some interesting inside information. Subaru, sometimes you're really like Puck, always so curious about other people's affairs. Emilia couldn't help but chuckle. Emiliachan, this is intelligence gathering. Nitsuki Subaru waved his arms, speaking with a straight face. As Emiliachan's chief knight, of course, I must always keep track of potential rivals' movements. Oh, so that's how it is. I misunderstood. Of course. As they spoke, the two had already arrived in front of a magnificent mansion. The entire building was constructed from the finest white stone, emitting a soft halo under the midday sun. The 5-meter-high archway was engraved with intricate family crests, every detail showcasing the artisan's exquisite craftsmanship. In the courtyard, meticulously trimmed bushes and elegantly shaped sculptures were scattered artfully. A cobblestone main path led straight to the mansion's main entrance. Wow! Nitsuki Subaru tilted his head up, unable to resist complaining, this is too exaggerated. It's even more luxurious than that nouveau riche Rosewall's mansion. Looking at this scale, it's almost on par with the royal palace. Subaru, it's true. Amelia was amused by his reaction, her slender fingers gently covering her mouth. The Astria family is one of the oldest knightly families in the kingdom of Lugunica. That's right, a lazy voice suddenly came from Amelia's silver hair. Puck's fluffy little head poked out, stretching languidly. His pink paw pads are sparkling in the sunlight. Their family has been a renowned noble house, passing down the name of Sword Saint for 400 years. Their influence in the kingdom is second only to the royal family. Puck, I didn't expect you to know so much about these noble secrets. Nitsuki Subaru raised an eyebrow, secretly surprised. Even this spirit who has lived for hundreds of years holds them in such high regard. It seems Reinhard's backing is even more formidable than I imagined. But on second thought, it made sense. With Reinhard's bug-like strength, it was only natural for him to have such a status. Just as Nitsuki Subaru was lost in thought, a slight sound suddenly came from above the surrounding wall. Swoosh. A few leaves rustled down, followed by the soft sound of fabric rubbing. Nitsuki Subaru keenly looked up, only to see a golden figure flash across the top of the wall like lightning. That petite figure flipped nimbly in the air, her short golden hair drawing a dazzling arc in the sunlight. Then, she landed as lightly as a wildcat, without even stirring up a speck of dust. Isn't that felt? Nitsuki Subaru's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something, and he deliberately raised his voice to shout. Yo, Felt, long time no see. What are you doing? Wah! Felt was startled by the sudden voice, her short golden hair even standing on end. However, upon seeing Nitsuki Subaru and Amelia, Felt visibly relaxed, then lowered her voice and said, so it's you guys. Hey, don't shout so loudly, what if Reinhard finds out? Hey, you're the one who suddenly jumped out of the wall. Nitsuki Subaru looked at Felt's sneaky appearance and couldn't help but tease, so afraid of being discovered. Could it be you stole something from Reinhard? Actually, he of course knew the real reason. Felt was trying to escape again. After all, she hated being confined to the mansion by Reinhard, let alone participating in the royal selection. TCH. Felt pouted, speaking with a disdainful look. Even if I were to steal something, I'd choose my targets, okay. That's true. Nitsuki Subaru nodded in deep agreement. Trying to steal something from under Reinhard's nose. That's too difficult. After all, that guy with hundreds of divine protections is practically a walking cheat. Stealing from his house. Isn't that just asking for death? Sorry, no time to catch up with you now. A hint of urgency flashed in Felt's ruby-like, brilliant eyes. She waved her hand impatiently. I'm leaving, big bro. Wait. Amelia suddenly stepped forward to stop Felt. What did you steal from Reinhard? That's not right, you must return it properly and apologize sincerely. Ah. Nitsuki Subaru covered his forehead, somewhat speechless. He had just been joking, he didn't expect Amelia to take it seriously. How many times do I have to say it? I didn't steal anything. Felt stomped her foot in anger, her short golden hair practically standing on end. On the contrary, I'm being locked up here, so I have to escape. Amelia, you misunderstood. Seeing the situation, Nitsuki Subaru quickly spoke up. What's going on? Amelia tilted her head in confusion, her long silver hair swaying gently with the movement. Regarding this matter, allow me to explain, Lady Amelia, and Subaru. A voice as gentle as jade suddenly came from behind. Nitsuki Subaru turned around and saw Reinhard, who had appeared 3 meters behind them at some point. His hair, as vibrant as flames, was particularly striking in the sunlight. His pure white night attire was spotless, the well-tailored clothes perfectly outlining his upright figure. His handsome face wore a perfectly appropriate smile, neither distant nor overly enthusiastic. Tisk, this guy. Nitsuki Subaru rolled his eyes, unable to stop himself from complaining wildly in his heart. Even his entrance is so elegant and handsome, his posture while walking looks like it was meticulously designed. This damned Reinhard aura, it's really impossible to imitate. Eek. HHE appeared. Felt jumped up like a frightened cat, almost bumping into the wall behind her, haphazardly assuming a defensive posture, her wine-red eyes full of vigilance. Lady Felt, I've kept you waiting. Reinhard performed an elegant bow, his movements as fluid as a dance, his red hair swaying gently with the motion. Who's waiting for you? Felt put her hands on her hips, glaring angrily at Reinhard, her small face scrunched up. Does my expression look like I'm waiting for you at all? It's clearly a, don't you dare come, expression. Take a better look. Reinhard. Amelia blinked in confusion, seemingly not yet fully understanding the situation. It's been a while, Lady Amelia. Reinhard bowed elegantly, his red hair glinting slightly in the sunlight. Seeing you safe and sound is truly reassuring. Yo, Reinhard. Nitsuki Subaru waved at Reinhard in greeting. The last time we met was, well, last time. Anyway, long time no see. Indeed, it has been a long time. Reinhard smiled warmly, his gaze lingering on Subaru for a moment, a hint of surprise on his face. You look much more spirited than last time, completely different from when we last met. You must have grown a lot during this time. This guy's perceptiveness is still as terrifying as ever. Nitsuki Subaru grumbled to himself, then deliberately puffed out his chest and said. Of course, I train every day. I'm much stronger now than I was. Although during this time, relying on the system to level up and add points on his own had indeed made him much stronger, when facing this cheat before him, there was still a bit of a gap. You know, Reinhard, the world's strongest sword saint with hundreds of divine protections. Not only did he overwhelm with strength, but he also had heaven-defying intuition and eyesight, able to maximize weapon performance. Although his own mana content was low and he couldn't use magic, he could absorb atmospheric mana, directly countering spirit mages. What was even more outrageous was that he could obtain whatever divine protection he wanted, and when he got serious, even the mana in the atmosphere would blindly follow him. In a certain, if, storyline, he even insta-killed Puck in 2 seconds. How do you fight someone like Reinhard? Answer me. Thinking of this, Nitsuki Subaru secretly broke out in a cold sweat. Just thinking about those hundreds of divine protections was enough to make one despair. Indeed, with Reinhard, it was safest to be friends. I can feel Subaru's progress. Reinhard slightly narrowed his eyes. Really? Nitsuki Subaru scratched his head and quickly changed the subject. But speaking of which, why is Felt here? This combination of yours is really unexpected. Although he already understood Felt's status as a royal selection candidate, he still feigned curiosity. Indeed. Reinhard nodded. Although you would all find out sooner or later, since this is a rare opportunity, allow me to explain. Damn it. Felt stomped her foot angrily from the side. Reinhard, you just took advantage of my absence, using Big Bro and the others to stall me so you could catch me. This is basically cheating. Regrettably, Lady Felt, Reinhard replied calmly, his voice as if stating the simplest fact, this is still within the mansion grounds. You guys, this is, what's going on? Amelia blinked her amethyst-like eyes in confusion. Perhaps we should move indoors to discuss in detail. Reinhard made an inviting gesture. Sure. Nitsuki Subaru readily agreed. Amelia nodded lightly. Damn it all. Felt angrily kicked a small stone by the roadside, watching it arc through the air and land in the distant grass. Under Reinhard's gaze, she finally and reluctantly followed, muttering protests under her breath. GhostPatreon.com/Walnutchen. 4 comments 0 vote. Live strongly. Felt. The future surpasses even cheater Reinhard. In the spacious and bright drawing room, Reinhard was explaining in detail what had happened when Felt touched the royal selection insignia, how it had glowed, and her identity as the 5th royal candidate. So, you're saying Miss Felt, she's also a candidate for the throne. Amelia's amethyst eyes widened, her silver hair swaying gently with her surprised movement. Yes, Reinhard nodded in confirmation. Lady Felt, as the 5th qualified dragon priestess, is a royal candidate whom I have personally recommended. So that's how it is. What a surprise. Nitsuki Subaru feigned a look of sudden realization. The fact that Felt was a royal candidate meant she would become Amelia's rival. But given Felt's personality, she probably had no desire to participate in any royal selection. Indeed, I'm quite surprised myself, Amelia nodded lightly. But speaking of which, Nitsuki Subaru suddenly turned to the sullen Felt, a playful smile on his lips. Felt, I never thought you'd turn out to be such an important big shot. Looks like I underestimated you before. Who the hell knows? Felt wrinkled her nose and glared resentfully at Reinhard. Let me make this clear, I passed out after the loot house incident was over, and when I woke up, I found myself locked up in this damn place. Is this something a knight should be doing? If it is for the future of the kingdom, I would gladly bear Lady Felt's resentment, Reinhard responded calmly, a glint of determination in the blue eyes beneath his red hair. Wow, that reason is just too powerful, Nitsuki Subaru said, placing a hand on his forehead, unable to hold back his commentary. That kind of grand, righteous excuse, paired with Reinhard's just an upright face, was simply impossible to refute. Just as Margrave Rosewall L. Mathers has nominated Lady Amelia for the selection, Reinhard paused slightly before continuing, I am also preparing to recommend Lady Felt as a candidate. Then, he turned to Nitsuki Subaru and Amelia, bowing slightly. When the day of the royal selection arrives, we will be rivals. At that time, I ask for your mercy. To be asked for mercy by you of all people. Hearing this, Nitsuki Subaru glanced at Reinhard's perfect profile, his own mouth twitching slightly. Does this guy, Reinhard, really think he's the one who'll need mercy? But speaking of which, Reinhard, shouldn't you properly confirm Felt's own intentions? Nitsuki Subaru said, pointedly looking at Felt, who was currently rolling on the sofa in protest. After all, you can't force a horse to drink. Felt had grown up in the slums, surviving by stealing. She held a deep-seated resentment for the nobility and the kingdom, feeling they did nothing but indulge themselves without doing any real work. To suddenly ask her to participate in the royal selection to become the country's king was like taking a stray cat used to roaming free and suddenly putting it in a golden cage as a pet. How could she possibly obey? Yeah, that's right, that's right. Hearing this, Felt immediately sprang up from the sofa, revealing her sharp little canines. Her wine-red eyes sparkled with excitement as if she had found a kindred spirit, and she flashed a brilliant smile at Nitsuki Subaru. Well said, bro. Now that's more like it. You hear that, Reinhard? Even bro says so. Felt placed her hands on her hips, shouting triumphantly at Reinhard. I admit, my previous methods were indeed too simple and crude. A hint of apology flashed in Reinhard's crystal clear, sky-blue eyes as he spoke slowly, therefore, I have made an agreement with Lady Felt. As long as she can. Sputter. Nitsuki Subaru's mouth twitched uncontrollably. He stole a glance at the smug-looking Felt, then at the composed, smiling Reinhard, and felt completely speechless for the naive girl. Doesn't this mean it's utterly hopeless? To escape from right under the nose of the Sword Saint, who possesses hundreds of divine protections, the difficulty of that is just absurdly off the charts. It's like asking a rookie fresh out of the starting village to solo a max-level final boss. What other outcome could there be besides getting stomped into the ground? Poor Felt. Nitsuki Subaru looked at the golden-haired girl's triumphant, victory is mine expression and couldn't bear to shatter her illusion with the cruel truth. He could only mourn for her in his heart for 3 seconds. This silly child still naively thinks she can escape this mansion, completely unaware of what kind of monster she's up against. I have always firmly believed, Reinhard said, his gaze fixed on Felt, his tone unwavering, that Lady Felt possesses the temperament and potential to be a ruler. She simply needs some time to adapt. If Reinhard says so, then Miss Felt must really have something special about her, Amelia said softly. I really can't see that at all. If you told me Felt has the potential to be a gang leader, I'd believe it 100%. Thinking this, Nitsuki Subaru looked at Reinhard and said nonchalantly, it seems, Reinhard, that you believe in Felt's potential to be king. I guess that makes us proper rivals now. As you say. Reinhard nodded slightly, his red bangs swaying with the movement. I look forward to a fair contest with you, Subaru, on the stage of the royal selection. Hey, don't just ignore me. Felt stomped her foot in frustration, her small leather boots making a clopping sound on the floor. I'm not the future of some kingdom. I'm just a thief who grew up in the slums. Lady Felt, the class you were born into and the past you have experienced are of no consequence, Reinhard said, bowing slightly, his expression gentle as he spoke to Felt. What truly matters is that you are one of the royal candidates favored by the prophecy of destiny. You possess the decisiveness and courage to lead the people to a bright future. And stop. Felt clamped her hands tightly over her ears, her brow furrowed in utter annoyance. Here we go again, with your cringy, goosebump-inducing lectures. Watching the composed and elegant Reinhard and the irritable and impatient Felt, Nitsuki Subaru was amused and couldn't help but interject, seriously, Reinhard, have you practiced that speech in front of a mirror? Indeed, I have. Surprisingly, Reinhard nodded with a completely straight face. In order to better convey the importance of the royal selection to Lady Felt, I have repeatedly deliberated on my wording. Arg. I can't take it anymore. Felt completely lost it, grabbing her own short, golden-draped hair and pacing back and forth before suddenly whirling on Natsuki Subaru. Bro, you have to help me think of a way to get out of this hellhole. I'm going to go crazy if I stay here any longer. Sorry, Felt. Natsuki Subaru spread his hands in a helpless gesture. This time, I can only stand on Reinhard's side. Besides, with my current strength, you want me to get you away from Reinhard. Are you kidding me? I think. Amelia said in a soft, quiet voice, Reinhard is surely doing this for Miss Felt's own good. That's right, that's right. Natsuki Subaru immediately chimed in, looking at the two with a grin. Emiliatin is right. Since it's an agreement between you two, then you can do as you please. It was worth mentioning that Reinhard's insistence on Felt was likely not just about the royal selection. It probably had something to do with Felt's lineage. Her unique golden hair and red eyes were a perfect match for the deceased members of the royal family, making it highly probable that she was connected to the infant who went missing from the royal family 14 years ago. As the heir to the Sword Saint family, which had served the royal family for generations, Reinhard must see this as the arrangement of fate, to protect the last royal bloodline, help her ascend the throne, and fulfill the Astria family's generational mission of guarding the crown. While Amelia, Crush, Priscilla, and the others were also prophesied candidates by the Dragon Tablet, they ultimately lacked royal blood. From the perspective of the Kingdom of Lugnika's succession laws, Felt's lineage was truly indisputable. The blood of the direct royal line flowed in her veins, a fact that had already been verified when the insignia resonated with her. Reinhard's sharp eyes would never mistake it. This girl who grew up in the slums was the last legitimate heir to the kingdom. Thinking of this, Natsuki Subaru couldn't help but marvel at the strangeness of fate. If he hadn't insisted on helping Amelia find her insignia that day, if he hadn't thought to seek Reinhard's help, if the Bowel Hunter Elsa's attack had been even a moment later, a deviation in any one of these links might have caused the crucial moment of Felt touching the insignia to happen without Reinhard's witness. Without the testimony of the strongest sword saint of the modern era, this lost princess might never have been discovered. Hey. Bro, you're just gonna leave me hanging like this. Felt shot up from the sofa, her wine-red eyes wide and round. She grabbed a throw pillow and chucked it at Natsuki Subaru, forcefully breaking his train of thought. Honestly. Coming to his senses, Natsuki Subaru deftly caught the pillow and shrugged helplessly. I don't have the confidence to win an argument with Reinhard, either. Besides, this is someone else's family business, so it's not really appropriate for me to get too involved. Seeing Felt's face instantly fall, Natsuki Subaru smiled and couldn't resist adding another line. Anyway, stay strong and live well, Felt. And remember to eat well every day. You guys, every last one of you is so annoying. Felt flopped onto the sofa like a deflated balloon, letting out a dissatisfied grumble. I'm definitely going to escape and show you all. Reinhard smiled and poured her a cup of black tea. Watching this scene, Natsuki Subaru couldn't help but sigh internally. This looks exactly like a strict tutor trying to discipline a rebellious problem child. But Felt almost slipped away today, you know, Natsuki Subaru said, looking at Felt and Reinhard, deliberately teasing them. Is it really okay for the security of the esteemed Sword Saint's home to be so lax? Shouldn't you be tightening the watch? Of course, he knew perfectly well that it was impossible for Felt to escape from Reinhard. Because I knew that just as Lady Felt was about to step out the main gate, Lady Amelia and Subaru would arrive. I was very clear on this, Reinhard said with a calm expression. I couldn't very well keep our distinguished guests waiting, so I was planning to personally accompany Lady Felt to greet you. You lost, so just admit it. Felt glared at Reinhard, puffing out her cheeks. Damn it, one day I'm going to slip away right under your nose and say goodbye to this stupid house. Which is why I will be on my guard with my full attention every day, Reinhard replied with a gentle expression. HMPH. Felt turned her head away, her lips pouted in discontent. Just then, Amelia gently tugged on Natsuki Subaru's sleeve and whispered in his ear, Subaru, their relationship seems surprisingly harmonious, doesn't it? Ah, so Emiliatin thinks so too, Natsuki Subaru said aloud, as if in a sudden moment of realization. You're right, it really does seem that way. Hey, you over there. I can hear you. Felt protested, leaping up like a cat with its fur on end. Reinhard tactfully changed the subject. Speaking of which, Lady Amelia and Subaru, is there an important matter for your visit today? On one hand, I am here as a knight to accompany Amelia for matters concerning the royal selection, Natsuki Subaru said, looking at Reinhard, and continued, On the other hand, I wanted to formally thank you for your help in fending off Elsa last time. To be honest, if you hadn't arrived in time back then. It was my duty, Reinhard replied gently and humbly. Protecting the people of the kingdom is a knight's responsibility. Even so, I must convey this gratitude to you formally, Nitsuki Subaru said with a sincere expression. Not just for me, but for the safety of Amelia and everyone else. In all honesty, if he hadn't found Reinhard in time that day, he, Amelia, and the others would have likely fallen to the Bell Hunter. He absolutely had to thank him in person for saving their lives. I understand. Seeing how serious Nitsuki Subaru was, Reinhard nodded gently. Then, I shall accept this thanks with gratitude. For the rest of the time, the four of them discussed the royal selection. Reinhard explained the procedures and important points in detail, while Amelia listened intently, asking questions from time to time. Although Felt said she wasn't interested, her ears were pricked up, and she would occasionally interject with a retort. It's getting late. We should be going, Nitsuki Subaru said, looking at the sky outside the window as he stood up. Lady Amelia, Subaru, please allow me to see you to the door. Reinhard also stood, gesturing gracefully. Well then, see you later, Felt. Nitsuki Subaru turned and waved to the golden-haired girl, deliberately drawing out his words. Stay strong and keep on living. HMPH, I'm living just fine. Felt crossed her arms and turned her face away with a huff. At the mansion's entrance, the setting sun stretched the trio's shadows long. A gentle breeze drifted by, carrying the fragrance of roses from the garden. Looking at the situation, Nitsuki Subaru said to Reinhard, when the royal selection begins, Felt will have no choice but to participate, right? Precisely. Reinhard nodded slightly, his red hair like a burning flame in the sunset. However, as I said before, Lady Felt truly possesses the qualities of a ruler. When that day comes, we will surely meet again. Well then, farewell, Amelia said, giving an elegant curtsy. See you next time. Nitsuki Subaru waved. Lady Amelia, Subaru, goodbye. Reinhard watched them leave. On the way back, Nitsuki Subaru thought to himself, but speaking of which, with Reinhard recommending Felt as a candidate for the throne, with a backer like him, Felt is going to be a formidable opponent in the royal selection. After all, that guy Reinhard's strength is just ridiculously cheat-like. With my current power, how could I possibly win against a monster like that? But, the royal selection isn't decided by military force alone. There's no use in overthinking it. With that thought, Nitsuki Subaru muttered under his breath, in terms of my own strength, I'm not worthy of being his opponent yet. I'll leave it at that for now, but just you wait, Reinhard. Subaru, are you going to fight with Reinhard? Amelia, walking beside him, sharply caught his muttering. Ah, no, no. It's not like that at all. Nitsuki Subaru quickly waved his hands. You shouldn't. Fighting is not good, especially with Reinhard, Amelia said, looking at Nitsuki Subaru with a serious expression. That's not something that can be solved with just a few injuries. Ah, I meant I want to become a man strong enough not to lose to him. I'm actually on pretty good terms with the guy, so don't worry. Nitsuki Subaru patiently explained to Amelia. Although I really do want to spar with Reinhard, I'd probably be killed in an instant. One day, I'll definitely surpass him. Is that so? Even if that's the case, I still think it will be very, very difficult. Having a lofty goal is a good thing, Subaru, Puck said, poking his head out from Amelia's silver hair. But remember, the path of a true warrior is paved one step at a time, you know. I never thought such wise words could come from such a tiny body, Puck. Nitsuki Subaru laughed and poked Puck, a fighting spirit igniting in his heart. But you're right, one day, I will surpass that guy. Just you wait. And I'll do it by relying on my system's ability to level up alone. As long as I keep getting stronger, surpassing Reinhard in the future isn't impossible. GhostPatreon.com/Walnutchen. 12 comments 0 vote. Thankfully, my head didn't go bald. Keepow rem, heart racing. The next morning. In an inn in the royal capital. 97, 98, 99, 100. Phew, finally done. With the last push-up completed, Nitsuki Subaru stood up, unable to help but let out a sigh of relief. Today, he wasn't wearing his iconic knight uniform, but had changed into a black casual outfit more suitable for physical training. Notification. Daily quest completed, rewards have been distributed. 1. Status recovery. 2. Attribute points +2. 3. Random box. The familiar system prompt sounded in his mind. Nitsuki Subaru, accustomed to it, wiped the sweat from his forehead, feeling the abundant energy within him. Same as always, I'll keep the status recovery for now. Then, I'll add the attribute points to strength. Nitsuki Subaru muttered to himself, opened the system panel, and then unhesitatingly added the 2 attribute points to strength. The value on his vision panel jumped accordingly, strength 114 right pointing arrow 116. Time to open the box. Next, Nitsuki Subaru rubbed his hands together and, full of anticipation, opened the random reward box. Swish. Resist. A brilliant light flashed, and inside the box lay an ordinary blue water cup. Ha! As expected, it's this kind of useless thing again. Nitsuki Subaru pursed his lips and helplessly tossed the blue water cup into his system inventory. Although he had long since gotten used to the unreliability of the random boxes, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope every time he opened one. Flexing his somewhat sore arms, Nitsuki Subaru thought back on his training results during this period. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, plus a 10-kilometer run every day. If an ordinary person were to do this set of exercises, they would probably be too tired to even crawl afterwards, but for him now, it had become a daily routine. Persisting with this kind of training every day, luckily my head hasn't gone bald. Subconsciously touching his thick black hair, Nitsuki Subaru's mind conjured up the image of a certain bald hero who could destroy the world with one punch. If the price of becoming stronger was going bald, that would be too tragic. Thinking of this, Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but smile. It's not bad to get stronger step by step like this. After all, his way of growing was completely different from the people of this world. Ordinary people who wanted to become stronger had to painstakingly cultivate magic and hone their physical techniques day after day, their progress slow and arduous. But he was different. The player system had endowed him with unlimited growth potential. Although the daily improvement seemed insignificant, what if it accumulated for 10 days, half a month, or even a year? Constant dripping wears away a stone, many grains of sand build a pagoda. This feeling of steadily becoming stronger made Nitsuki Subaru feel both grounded and excited. Today's daily quest is also done. Next. Nitsuki Subaru looked out the window, sunlight sprinkling on the streets of the royal capital, but his thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. Knock knock. Subaru, may Rem come in? A familiar girlish voice came from outside the door. Please come in. Nitsuki Subaru responded with a smile. Subaru, you must be tired from training. Please use this to wipe your sweat. Rem pushed the door open, holding a clean white towel in both hands, her blue eyes filled with gentle concern. Thank you, Rem. Nitsuki Subaru took the towel and casually wiped his face. Watching Nitsuki Subaru train tirelessly every day, Rem couldn't help but say softly. Subaru is really working hard. Even after coming to the royal capital, you still maintain this habit. It's nothing, just daily exercise, Nitsuki Subaru said with a smile, but being praised by Rem gives me more motivation. He couldn't possibly tell Rem that this so-called daily exercise was actually a mandatory daily quest from the system. Failure to complete it would result in unimaginable punishment, but the rewards for success, status recovery, attribute point increases, random boxes, these bountiful rewards were irresistible. Rem will always be by Subaru's side, protecting Subaru. Rem smiled faintly, looking at Nitsuki Subaru and speaking softly. No, I should be the one protecting Rem. Nitsuki Subaru straightened his back, placed his right hand on his chest, struck a standard knightly pose, and a confident smile spread across his lips. Rem's hero is the best in the world. Rem tilted her small face upwards, her azure eyes reflecting Nitsuki Subaru's upright figure, and bloomed with a radiant smile. Of course, as a knight, I am very strong, especially when it comes to protecting someone as important as Rem, I will become even stronger. Saying this, feeling the surging power within his body, Nitsuki Subaru secretly assessed. With his current physical attributes, although he hadn't actually fought her, he had probably already surpassed Rem. Although Rem was a descendant of the Oni tribe, naturally possessing a physique and combat talent far exceeding humans, including strength, speed, and recovery ability. However, in her non-unified state, Rem's strength was relatively ordinary, relying more on weapons and tactics. Even so, Rem could still easily wield that massive meteor hammer, a testament to her strength. And the true power of the Oni tribe came from the horns on their heads. By absorbing mana from the air, they could greatly enhance their physical abilities. Unfortunately, Rem was born with only a single horn, making her strength somewhat weaker than an ordinary Oni, thus she was more adept at using magic and weapons to compensate for this gap. Speaking of which, in the original story, it was always Rem who silently protected him. And now, it was finally his turn to protect this lovely girl. Subaru. Rem's gentle voice pulled Natsuki Subaru from his thoughts. What are you so engrossed in thinking about? Hee. Nothing special. Natsuki Subaru came back to his senses, looking at the blue-haired girl who was always worrying about him, and couldn't help but tease. I was just thinking, I'm such a lucky man to have an Ona's help. Having Rem by my side makes me really happy. Quote. Rem was stunned for a moment, then her fair cheeks flushed a visible red, her hands clenched into fists, her eyes firm yet tinged with shyness. Being able to stay by Subaru's side is Rem's honor. Rem will continue to work even harder. Quote. A Rem who blushes so easily is, as expected, the cutest. Watching Rem's adorable reaction, Natsuki Subaru couldn't help but smile, then, at the right moment, change the subject. By the way, Rem, do you have any plans for today? Yes, I need to go out and purchase daily supplies. That's perfect, let's go together. But, shouldn't you be accompanying Lady Amelia? Today, Amelia is staying at the inn to discuss the royal selection regulations with Rosewall. She said those political topics are boring and told me to do as I please. Natsuki Subaru paused for a moment, then continued to explain, and, compared to those dull meetings, I'd rather go shopping with Rem. After all, it was a rare trip to the royal capital, so going out with Rem wouldn't be bad. Is that so? Rem's eyes instantly lit up, as if she had thought of something more, and she nodded lightly, then. Rem will go get ready. Subaru, please wait a moment. No problem. Watching Rem's hastily departing figure, Natsuki Subaru's lips unconsciously curved upwards. In this other world, meeting a girl as gentle and considerate as Rem was perhaps his greatest fortune. The sky was clear and vast, and the bustling streets of the royal capital teemed with people. Bright sunlight sprinkled, scattered, on the stone-paved road, coating the entire commercial street in a warm golden hue. Perhaps because of the rare good weather, there seemed to be more pedestrians than usual today. The cries of vendors from the shops lining the street rose and fell, presenting a lively scene. However, Natsuki Subaru was deaf to all this hustle and bustle at the moment. Because his entire attention was firmly captivated by the blue silhouette beside him. Today, Rem had uncharacteristically shed her usual maid attire and changed into a waterblue kipalike dress, the silk fabric shimmering with a soft luster in the sunlight. The tailored cut perfectly outlined her graceful figure, her slender waist barely a handful, yet supporting an alluring curve at her chest that made one's heart race. The high slit of the skirt swayed gently with her steps, revealing glimpses of her long legs wrapped in white stockings, each step carrying an elegant rhythm. Looking at Rem beside him, Natsuki Subaru suddenly stopped, hesitating to speak. What's wrong, Subaru? Rem tilted her head slightly, her blue short hair swaying gently with the movement, gleaming softly in the sunlight. Well, we're just out to buy daily necessities. Natsuki Subaru scratched his cheek, his gaze unconsciously wandering. Why did you specially change into such a beautiful dress? Although Rem in her usual maid outfit paired with white stockings was already cute enough to be against the rules, today she was like a completely different person. An elegant, otherworldly version of a kipao perfectly outlined her exquisite figure, her long legs playing hide and seek. A delicate pink-laced hair accessory adorned her blue hair, complementing her beautiful face, making her look like a beautiful young maiden who had stepped out of a painting. Because Rem's cheeks flushed faintly, her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her skirt. Subaru previously said he wanted to see Rem in casual clothes, so I changed into them today. For Rem, this is also a first. So that's how it is. Facing the gorgeously dressed Rem, Natsuki Subaru struggled to maintain a calm expression, scratching the back of his head as he spoke. Indeed, he had mentioned at Rosewall Manor that he wanted to see Rem in casual clothes. But he hadn't expected that seeing her in person would deliver such a visual impact, far exceeding his imagination. As they walked, Rem inadvertently caught a glimpse of her long legs, peeking through the slit of the kipao. Oh no, this slit height, it's definitely intentional, right? No, Rem is so innocent, she probably just thinks it looks good. But, this is too beautiful. At this moment, Rem was 100 times cuter than when she wore her maid outfit, causing Natsuki Subaru's face to blush uncontrollably. After all, Rem like this was simply too dazzling. Rem tilted her head gently, her blue hair swaying slightly with her movements, a faint smile playing on her lips. Your face is so red, could it be you're shy? Hee hee. Hey, this is normal. Nitsuki Subaru's old face turned red, and he forced himself to stand straight, speaking in a serious tone. Walking alone with such a beautiful Rem is a super difficult challenge for me. I feel like my heart is about to go into overload. Damn it, Rem, like this is too much of a foul. PFF'd. Rem couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle, her eyes curving into cute crescents. Subaru is saying things Rem doesn't understand again. However, although I don't quite understand, seeing Subaru react like this makes Rem very happy. Sunlight filtered through Rem's long eyelashes, casting fragmented shadows on her face. In this instant, Rem's smile was so sweet it was intoxicating. Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but stare, and even the surrounding clamor seemed to fade away, the entire world reduced to this radiantly smiling blue-haired girl before him. Ahem, by the way. Rem. Nitsuki Subaru struggled to tear his gaze away from Rem, the kippao outlining her graceful curves made his heart race, and he quickly changed the subject. Where should we start purchasing supplies? According to the list, let's go to the general store in the central market first. Rem stepped forward and naturally took Nitsuki Subaru's arm, tilting up her delicate face. Sunlight filtered through her long eyelashes, casting fragmented shadows on her cheeks. Rem has already planned the most efficient route. The soft, cushiony feeling from her arm made Nitsuki Subaru freeze, and even his voice unconsciously rose a few pitches. Okay. Hey, isn't this a bit too close? Nitsuki Subaru wailed inwardly, feeling all the blood in his body rush to his face. Their intimate proximity made his peripheral vision unavoidably catch Rem's delicate collarbones, and that faintly visible pair of snow-white peaks. Hastily averting his gaze, yet while silently telling himself to calm down, Nitsuki Subaru's eyes unconsciously drifted back. Rem is really so. What's wrong? Rem tilted her head slightly, her blue hair swaying gently with her movements. Well, Nitsuki Subaru tried to make his voice sound normal, changing the subject. Many people are looking at you today. Indeed, since a moment ago, passers-by had been casting admiring glances at Rem from time to time. Having shed her maid outfit, Rem wore a light blue kippao, her blue shoulder-length hair gleaming softly in the sunlight, her entire being radiating a brilliance different from her usual self. This was hardly surprising, as Rem was already a rare beauty to begin with. Is that so? Rem blinked her eyes in confusion, her slender fingers gently tapping her chin, revealing a smile as gentle as a spring cherry blossom. But in Rem's eyes, I can only see Subaru. Other people's gazes don't matter to Rem at all. Facing Rem's sudden direct hit, Nitsuki Subaru felt his heart beat so fast it was as if it would jump out of his chest. This is too direct. As expected of Rem, it's a complete knockout. Ghostpatreon.com/walnutchin. 3 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Walnutchin. Download app now. Want to buy some apples, young man? After purchasing the supplies, Nitsuki Subaru and Rem, their moods gradually calming, strolled on their way back. As they passed a familiar corner, a stall decorated with various fruits came into view. Suddenly, a loud voice called out. Yo, little bro. Long time no see. You've brought a different girl today, quite capable, huh? Ah, so it's you, uncle. Nitsuki Subaru said, slightly annoyed after turning to see who it was. Please, don't say things that are so easily misunderstood, okay? Standing before them was none other than the fruit stall owner, Kadoman. He was a sturdily built, martial arts type merchant with a scar on his face and a head of green hair that couldn't help but bring the term, forgiveness color, to mind. Although he looked exceptionally fierce, those familiar with him knew he was a good husband and father who doted on his wife and daughter. Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but recall that this fruit stall owner was the first person he met after transmigrating to this other world. Although Kadoman's initial attitude wasn't very friendly, after he and Amelia helped his lost daughter, Kadoman had also provided important information about Felt. Speaking of which, in the original story's timeline, this place was Nitsuki Subaru's most frequent save point, and also a place of lingering shadows. Thinking of this, Nitsuki Subaru sighed inwardly. Still, I've cleared it in one life this time, so none of that matters anymore. Haha. What misunderstanding. Fruit stall owner Kadoman placed his hands on his hips, his hearty laughter exceptionally loud in the bustling market. The prominent scar on his face softened with his smile, actually making him seem a bit more amiable. It's just that you've brought a different girl than last time, isn't it? Seriously, uncle, your memory is surprisingly good. It's been almost a month, and you still remember so clearly. Knowing Kadoman was talking about Amelia, Nitsuki Subaru raised an eyebrow at him. Oh, a businessman has to have a good memory. Kadoman said, stroking the stubble on his chin proudly, then suddenly showed a puzzled expression, his brow furrowing. But speaking of which, that girl from last time, I can't quite recall her appearance. I clearly remember the faces of other customers. I take back what I just said, uncle's memory isn't that great after all. Nitsuki Subaru said this, but he already understood in his heart. It was no wonder, after all, Amelia was wearing a recognition obstruction robe that day. With that level of magical item, ordinary people simply couldn't remember the wearer's appearance. Although I don't remember clearly, I have the impression she was a girl with a very faint presence. Kadoman said, stroking his chin, the muscle lines on his thick arms distinct. He then shifted his gaze to Rem, who was wearing a kipao. In comparison, this young lady is more dazzling. This outfit makes her look as radiant as those noble ladies. Hey, uncle, what you're saying isn't right. Amelia is clearly a super beautiful girl too. Nitsuki Subaru rolled his eyes at Kadoman, but his gaze was unconsciously drawn to Rem beside him. Of course, Rem today is indeed so beautiful it's hard to look away. You know, Amelia was a half-elf with silver hair and purple eyes, her peerless beauty and innocent temperament a natural blend. However, Rem's kipao attire today was also too much of a rule-breaker. That feeling of purity mixed with a little sexiness. The two had completely different styles, there was simply no way to compare them. Oh, little bro, don't be so serious. Kadoman laughed heartily, aren't I just praising your current female companion? Thank you for your compliment. Rem looked at Kadoman and curtsied slightly, however, Lady Amelia is indeed very beautiful. Young lady, take my advice. Kadoman looked at Rem and lowered his voice, it's better to dump this fierce-eyed kid sooner rather than later, or you'll suffer in the future. Subaru isn't fierce at all. Rem covered her mouth and chuckled lightly, her blue eyes curving into crescents, he is the gentlest person in the world. Rem, this is Uncle Kadoman from the fruit stall. Hearing Kadoman tease him like this, Nitsuki Subaru deliberately raised his voice and introduced him to Rem. Don't mind his fierce appearance, he's actually a good man who works hard at this fruit stall every day for his lovely daughter and beautiful wife. After saying that, Nitsuki Subaru even winked at Kadoman, a sly smile on his face. Sorry, uncle, I'm just a person who likes to tell the truth. Please don't take it to heart. Who asked you to tease me just now? Nitsuki Subaru added silently in his heart. I'll definitely take it to heart. Kadoman crossed his thick arms, responding in a gruff voice, rather, I pay extra attention to what you say, kid. If you hadn't praised my daughter and wife, I would have dealt with you on the spot. Don't be angry, uncle, I was just joking. But, speaking of which. At this moment, Nitsuki Subaru suddenly noticed the mountain of apples at the stall. Uncle, how's business lately? Why does it feel like there are even more apples than last time? Sigh. Kadoman sighed helplessly, a rare look of worry on his rugged face. How should I put it? It's a bit troubling. Business is getting harder and harder these days, and a few more fruit shops have opened in the royal capital. Although uncle already looks fierce enough. Looking at Kadoman's sturdy build and the conspicuous scar on his face, Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but complain. But you look especially scary today. Is it because business is bad? You haven't even trimmed your beard. How could that be? My wife really approves of my looks, she always says I look very manly like this. As he spoke, Kadoman somewhat troubledly scratched his messy green hair. I was originally thinking of taking advantage of the high foot traffic in the royal capital during the royal selection period and specially ordered a large batch of apples. Now there are still 5 boxes left that I can't sell. If I can't sell them soon, these apples will spoil. I see. Nitsuki Subaru nodded thoughtfully, his gaze sweeping over the pile of apples at the stall. It seems the ordinary citizens of the kingdom are paying extra attention to the royal selection. After all, Ludnika's royal selection was a special procedure initiated due to the sudden break in the royal bloodline, and the entire country was anticipating the birth of a new king to maintain stability. The 5 candidates had to prove their abilities and also gain the recognition of the Dragon Maiden. In this atmosphere, the citizens of the royal capital would naturally be particularly sensitive to anything related to the royal selection. Even a small business like merchant Kodomans couldn't avoid being affected by this trend. Does Subaru have any good ideas? Rem noticed Nitsuki Subaru's thoughtful expression and asked softly. Ah, I do have an idea. Nitsuki Subaru reined in his emotions, showed Rem a confident smile, then turned to Kodoman. Seeing as you're the first person I talked to after coming to this world, uncle, I'll make an exception and help you out. Could it be, little bro, you're going to buy all these apples? Kodoman's eyes immediately lit up, but then he shook his head. But there are too many, you definitely won't be able to eat them all. What are you thinking, uncle? Nitsuki Subaru spread his hands helplessly, interrupting Kodoman's fantasy. Even if I really bought all the apples, wouldn't it be even more wasteful if they rotted because I couldn't finish them? Then what good idea do you have, little bro? Kodoman narrowed his eyes suspiciously, the scar on his face twitching slightly with his expression, his thick arms crossed over his chest. Of course. Nitsuki Subaru confidently snapped his fingers, such a small problem can't stump me. As expected of Subaru, you thought of a solution so quickly. Rem praised softly, her hands unconsciously clasped in front of her chest, her blue eyes sparkling with admiration, even the tips of her hair swayed gently with her slight forward-leaning motion. Ahem. Facing Rem's ardent gaze, Nitsuki Subaru somewhat embarrassedly touched his cheek. Actually, I'm not sure if this method will work. In my hometown, there's a snack called Bingtang Apuru candied apples which is very popular. Although I haven't specifically learned how to make it, I roughly know the steps. He remembered seeing the process of making candied fruits and the like when working part-time at a modern convenience store before transmigrating. It shouldn't be too difficult. Although he had only seen the staff make it a few times, the principle should be similar. Bingtang Apuru. Kodoman's thick eyebrows shot up. Subaru is probably talking about apples coated in boiled sugar, right? Rem immediately understood. Her professional maid skills allowed her to quickly grasp the principle of this dessert. That's right. Seeing Rem understood his idea, Nitsuki Subaru was instantly energized. To make Bingtang Apuru, you only need sugar, apples, and an iron pot. No sooner said than done. After preparing the necessary ingredients, Nitsuki Subaru, relying on vague memories and improvisation, began to make them. Actually, this Bingtang Apuru was just apples coated in melted sugar. First step, a 1:1 ratio of water to sugar, simmered over low heat, without stirring. He remembered the key was to control the temperature of the syrup, around 115 degrees was ideal. But there's no thermometer here, I can only go by feel. Nitsuki Subaru operated while recalling the process of making candied fruit in his mind. Kodoman and Rem both leaned in curiously to watch. The three of them cast overlapping shadows in the sunlight, and a sweet sugary aroma gradually filled the air. However, how did it turn out like this? It's a complete failure. Nitsuki Subaru let out a wail, holding his head in his hands and squatting on the ground. The creation before him was a far cry from the crystal clear sugar coating he had imagined. The viscous syrup hung unevenly on the apple's surface like melted glue, forming ugly lumps in some places and being almost transparently thin in others. The entire product looked like the brutally ravaged corpse of a dessert. I knew this little bro wasn't reliable. Kodoman crossed his thick arms, shaking his head in disappointment. Hey, it's normal to make mistakes on the first try. Nitsuki Subaru scratched the back of his head awkwardly. This kind of delicate work naturally requires more practice. Subaru, is this how it's done? Rem's gentle voice suddenly sounded. She was elegantly turning an apple with her slender fingers, the heat for boiling the sugar controlled perfectly, every movement as precise as if practiced thousands of times. The steps are indeed correct. Nitsuki Subaru's eyes widened in surprise, watching Rem's seemingly magical operation. Amazingly, Rem had perfectly mastered the technique after watching his failed attempt just once. Is this Rem's cooking skill? She can perfectly replicate it after just one look. A moment later. It's done. Rem held up the finished product, her voice soft yet full of accomplishment. Under the bright sunlight, that skewer of Bingtang Apuru shone with an amber-like luster. The golden sugar coating was as transparent as crystal, evenly enveloping the bright red fruit. The surface of the sugar coating was as smooth as a mirror, even reflecting Kodoman's astonished expression. The sweet caramel aroma permeated the air, making one want to take a bite immediately. This Bingtang Apuru is too perfect. Nitsuki Subaru leaned in to carefully examine the crystal-clear Bintang Apuru and couldn't help but praise, Rem, are you some kind of dessert genius? He hadn't expected Rem to succeed on her first try making Bintang Apuru. As expected, the title of all-powerful maid wasn't for nothing. This was too amazing. It's nothing, it's all thanks to Subaru's good teaching. Rem gently shook her head, her blue hair fluttering in the wind. It really does look delicious. Uncle Kadoman leaned closer, looking at the crystal-clear Bintang Apuru, the scar on his face softening. If I sell them like this, those 5 boxes of apples will definitely sell out quickly. Thank you so much. Please give the finished Bintang Apuru to the young lady. Saying this, Kadoman deftly packed a bag of fresh apples and handed it to Rem, and these, please be sure to accept them as my thanks. Hey, uncle. What about my thanks? Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but interject. Little bro. Kadoman said, smiling and pointing at the charred, failed product, you can just take those failed apples back. After all, you made them yourself. Quote. Nitsuki Subaru looked at his own too horrible to look at creation, momentarily speechless. Subaru, this is for you. Rem suddenly handed the finished Bintang Apuru to Nitsuki Subaru, her sapphire-like eyes filled with anticipation. No need. A warm feeling surged in Nitsuki Subaru's heart, and he quickly waved his hand. Rem wants to try it too, right? You can keep it for yourself. Rem is always so considerate. Then, how about we share it? Rem tilted her head, thinking for a moment, then held the apple between them, a sweet curve forming on her lips. This is the first Bintang Apuru Rem made. I really want to share it with Subaru. Rem, you're so thoughtful. Nitsuki Subaru looked at the gentle blue-haired girl before him, moved. His fingertips inadvertently brushed against Rem's warm fingers, and he instantly trembled as if shocked. A Rem like this, how could anyone not like her? I'm really sorry to interrupt your lovey-dovey moment, but I still have a small business to run. Saying this, fruit stall owner Kadoman rubbed his hands, a fawning smile plastered on his face as he approached Rem. Young lady, could I trouble you to demonstrate the steps for making Bintang Apuru again? Of course. Rem nodded gently in agreement, a serene smile on her lips as she returned to the fruit stall. In the following time, Rem deliberately slowed her movements, patiently demonstrating each step for Kadoman. Her slender fingers nimbly turned the apple, and the syrup in her hands seemed to come alive, evenly coating the fruit. Sunlight refracted through the sugar coating, casting a crystalline glow on Rem's focused profile. Here, Subaru. During a break in the demonstration, Rem suddenly turned, split the finished Bintang Apuru in 2, and handed half to Nitsuki Subaru who was standing nearby. Then I won't be polite. Wow. This is too delicious. Nitsuki Subaru took a bite, and the sweet taste exploded in his mouth, making him exclaim in exaggerated praise. The apple's freshness and the sugar coating's sweetness blended perfectly, enhanced by the warmth of Rem's craftsmanship. It's great that Subaru likes it. Then Rem will continue helping Uncle. Subaru can rest on the side. Rem would then turn her head towards Nitsuki Subaru, wink, and show a playful smile. Her slightly flushed cheeks were even more enticing than the Bintang Apuru in her hand, her bright eyes filled with mirth. All right. Nitsuki Subaru nodded, but his gaze constantly followed Rem's figure. Seriously, I can't resist it at all. Rem's smile is simply off the charts in terms of healing power. Just then, as he casually scanned the market, a bright orange figure suddenly burst into Nitsuki Subaru's field of vision. That bright color streaked past like a meteor, yet it left a vivid imprint on his retina. GhostPatreon.com/Walnutchin. 3 comments 0 vote. This concubine can reward you. What concerned Nitsuki Subaru more was the owner of that figure, a girl in a gorgeous dress, being half-forced into a dark alley by several menacing-looking men. Just now, that was. Nitsuki Subaru's brow furrowed unconsciously. Though I think it's unlikely, could it really be what I'm thinking, that cliché plot of a girl being dragged into an alley by bad guys to be bullied? He wasn't usually one to meddle in other people's affairs, but in that moment of hesitation, the scene of Amelia extending a helping hand to him when he first arrived in this other world flashed through his mind. Back then, the silver-haired girl had also unhesitatingly helped him, a complete stranger. Indeed, having seen it, I can't just stand by and do nothing. Rem, wait for me a moment, I'll be right back. Leaving those words behind, Nitsuki Subaru was already dashing towards the alley. You damn bitch, stop kidding around. Hearing such angry curses as soon as he rushed into the alley, Natsuki Subaru became even more convinced his judgment was correct and immediately quickened his pace. What kind of joke is this, you bitch? Watch out, or I'll smash that pretty face of yours, huh? As he drew closer, the sounds of arguing became clearer. After turning a corner, Natsuki Subaru finally got a clear view of the scene deep in the alley. An orange-haired girl was surrounded by three men of varying heights. However, what was surprising was that the girl not only showed no fear but instead puffed out her impressive chest and spoke in a condescending tone. Stop your incessant, loud clamoring, you fools. Those lacking in class are truly tasteless for even daring to cause trouble for me. This was originally a very common incident of thugs looking for trouble. But the girl's dazzling beauty, enough to illuminate the entire dark alleyway, was deeply imprinted in Natsuki Subaru's mind. Her orange-yellow hair cascaded down like a waterfall, elegantly pinned behind her head with an exquisite hairpin. A pure red dress, as vibrant as fresh blood, outlined her perfect figure, accentuating her strikingly impactful beauty. The ruby-encrusted necklace on her neck, the swaying gold ornaments on her earlobes, and the several rings on her slender fingers, even a layman could tell they were priceless. In short, her attire from head to toe exuded the unique noble aura of an aristocrat. However, even adorned with splendid clothes and beautiful jewelry, her own outstanding features could not be hidden. Her slightly upturned phoenix eyes shimmered with a ruby-like luster, their provocative gaze daring anyone to look directly. Her light pink cherry lips complemented her snow-white skin, making her look like a noble young lady who had stepped out of a famous painting. This is definitely a beautiful girl who is no less stunning than Rem or Amelia. Looking at the girl ahead, Natsuki Subaru sighed inwardly. At this moment, the thugs surrounding the girl were cursing more and more irritably, one of them even raising a fist. But the girl merely crossed her arms elegantly, a gesture that unintentionally further emphasized her impressive figure, appearing completely unfazed. The girl's composure, however, further enraged the thugs, their expressions becoming even more ferocious. Something's a bit strange. Looking at the girl's profile, Natsuki Subaru suddenly felt a strange sensation. That arrogant expression, that disdainful attitude, and the unique tone of her speech all felt strangely familiar to him. I keep feeling a strange sense of familiarity. Is it an illusion? Natsuki Subaru shook his head in confusion, but now wasn't the time to think about that. Three thugs bullying a defenseless girl, he really couldn't stand by and watch such a thing. Seeing this, Natsuki Subaru strode forward and shouted loudly, "That's enough of this violence." Hearing the sudden voice, the three thugs turned their heads simultaneously. What the hell? Some blind fool showing up. Hey, who the hell are you, kid? The tall thug in the lead glared fiercely at Natsuki Subaru. Natsuki Subaru looked at the people in front of him and said calmly, "I'm just a concerned citizen passing by." Perhaps seeing Natsuki Subaru alone, unarmed, and wearing ordinary black casual clothes, the thugs all showed contemptuous expressions. What? A concerned citizen? You damn kid, trying to play the hero saving the damsel. The three thugs exchanged glances and, in unison, revealed mocking smiles. The burliest thug, with a fleshy face, even exaggeratedly rolled up his sleeves, revealing brawny arms covered in menacing tattoos, and deliberately waved them in front of Natsuki Subaru. You damn kid, if you know what's good for you, don't meddle. Scram. Facing the three aggressive thugs, Natsuki Subaru's gaze suddenly sharpened. Or else you'll face the consequences. Quote. What's going on? The thugs unconsciously took half a step back, exchanging uncertain and alarmed glances. Although they usually ran rampant in the streets, at this moment, they instinctively felt a bone-chilling coldness shoot up their spines. It was the most primitive tremor a living being feels when facing danger. You must understand, Natsuki Subaru had fought bloody battles with hundreds of beasts in the forest and had engaged in life-or-death struggles with various monsters in dungeon instances. Those experiences of battling on the verge of life and death had long since forged an intimidating aura in him, far surpassing that of an ordinary person. At this moment, Natsuki Subaru's stance seemed casual, but in reality, all the muscles in his body had entered optimal combat readiness. Just as the atmosphere was about to explode, the girl who had been cornered suddenly spoke, her voice as clear as a silver bell, yet carrying undisguised mockery. Hey, dawdling over there, are you girls? If so, you should dress neatly and do something pleasing to my eyes. Your get-up, all muscles and body hair, is utterly ridiculous. Natsuki Subaru frowned upon hearing this girl was practically adding fuel to the fire. But strangely enough, the girl's supercilious and arrogant demeanor always gave him an indescribable sense of familiarity. Strange, do I know her? Just as Nitsuki Subaru was pondering. The thugs finally recovered from their shock. They had lorded over this neighborhood for years. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? After a brief stupor, the men flew into a rage. What the hell are you saying, you bitch? Who are you calling girls, bastard, you're talking nonsense. Thinking you're so great, running your mouth over there, what do you want, huh? At this moment, the girl completely ignored the enraged thugs, turned to face Nitsuki Subaru, her ruby-like eyes narrowing slightly, revealing a hint of admiration. Commoner, to stand up for me is commendable. Although with my abilities, dealing with such petty scoundrels requires no assistance from others, in light of your courage, I can bestow a reward upon you. Hey, what's this? Such a condescending, charitable tone. I was the one who proactively helped, so how did it turn into her rewarding me? Do you think you're a queen? This arrogant person is really making me quite annoyed. Nitsuki Subaru fought back the urge to roll his eyes. This orange-haired girl's narcissism was simply off the charts. But just as he was silently complaining, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. This unique tone of voice, this disdainful attitude. Wait, this way of speaking, could it be her? Thinking of this, with a tentative feeling, Nitsuki Subaru opened his mouth and asked the girl. Are you Priscilla? Oh. The girl raised her meticulously trimmed eyebrows in slight surprise, took an elegant step forward, her scarlet skirt swaying gently with the movement, glistening splendidly in the sunlight. Her red lips curved into a playful smile. I didn't expect that in such a common marketplace, someone would actually recognize me. That's right, I am indeed Priscilla Bariel. It really was her, Priscilla Bariel, originally named Prisca Benedict. She was once an imperial princess of the sacred Volician Empire. After being defeated by the current emperor, Vincent, in the cruel emperor selection ceremony, she came to the kingdom by ingeniously faking her death and taking the identity of a substitute. Now, she is the most unconventional one among the 5 royal candidates of the kingdom. Having inherited the enormous wealth of the Bariel family, and due to her iconic blood-red dress and fearsome reputation, she is reverently and fearfully known by the world as the Blood-Red Bride. Behind this title are 7 marriages that ended with the bizarre deaths of her husbands. Rumors in the streets say that these accidents are inextricably linked to her. However, ironically, in the domain of her last husband, the populace is utterly obsessed with this blood-red bride, respectfully calling her the Sun Princess. It is said that a series of pro-people policies she implemented during her governance significantly improved the lives of the local people. In that case, do as you please. After learning Priscilla's identity, Nitsuki Subaru averted his gaze from her impressive curves and turned to leave. No wonder her chest is so incredibly huge, this size is practically against the rules, ahem. If I had known it was Priscilla, why would I have even bothered worrying? This woman is a badass who can single-handedly defeat the Sin Archbishop of Wrath. Instead of worrying about her, it's better to offer 3 seconds of silent prayer for those clueless thugs. You're leaving just like that. Priscilla's ruby-like, brilliant eyes widened slightly, her meticulously drawn eyebrows unconsciously arching. As the head of the Bariel household, with her stunning beauty and prominent status, she had long grown accustomed to people's attitudes of either or flattery. But this black-haired young man before her, after recognizing her identity, his first reaction was to turn and leave so decisively. This completely unexpected reaction made Priscilla unconsciously press her red lips together, her fingertips unconsciously caressing the ruby necklace on her neck. Interesting, daring to ignore me. Trying to run. You damn kid. Seeing Nitsuki Subaru turn to leave, the thugs thought he was cowardly retreating and immediately surrounded him menacingly, their faces showing ferocious smiles. What do you want? Nitsuki Subaru frowned, his voice deepening. The lead thug grinned ferociously, cracking his knuckles. We'll teach you a lesson, show you the consequences of meddling. I'd quite like to know what those consequences would be. Nitsuki Subaru narrowed his eyes. He hadn't wanted to get entangled, but since they were insistent on courting death, he couldn't be blamed. Stop pretending, you damn kid. The thug roared and threw a fierce punch. This punch carried a whistling sound, clearly thrown with full force. If an ordinary person were hit by this punch, they'd probably have their face smashed and fall to the ground on the spot. However, in Nitsuki Subaru's eyes, the thug's straight punch trajectory was clearly visible, his movements as slow as a crawling snail. No, to be precise, the reaction speed he had honed in countless life or death battles had long surpassed that of an ordinary person. Coupled with the enhancements from system upgrades and attribute point investments, his bodily instincts had evolved to an entirely new level. Just as the fist was about to make contact. Crack! The crisp sound of bone fracturing echoed in the alley. The thug's wrist bone shattered completely upon contact, his entire arm twisting into a grotesque angle. Nitsuki Subaru smoothly redirected his momentum, and the nearly 200 jin burly body was sent flying like a rag doll. With a boom, he heavily crashed into the brick wall 5 meters away, and the wall immediately spider-webbed with cracks. Die! The second thug, seeing this, roared and quickly drew a dagger from his waist. A cold glint flashed as the sharp blade aimed straight for Nitsuki Subaru's vital lower back. Too slow. Without turning his head, Nitsuki Subaru merely sidestepped slightly, his right hand shooting out like lightning to grip the opponent's knife-wielding wrist. Crack! Crack! With 2 consecutive crisp sounds, the thug's wrist and elbow joints were simultaneously shattered. The dagger clattered to the ground, and that arm immediately hung limp like a noodle. Nitsuki Subaru delivered a vicious knee strike right into the thug's abdomen. PFF'd. The thug spewed blood mixed with stomach fluids, his body arching like a cooked shrimp as he flew backward, landing heavily in a pile of trash. Ah! Damn bastard. The last thug, seeing this, though terrified, still steeled himself and charged forward, swinging his fist at Nitsuki Subaru. Bang! Nitsuki Subaru's eyes sharpened, his right leg lashing out like a whip, a clean roundhouse kick landing squarely on the thug's chest, sending him flying 5 meters. The thug slammed into the wall like a rag, leaving a human-shaped dent before slowly sliding down, completely unconscious. The entire fight, from start to finish, lasted only 3 seconds. Such a waste of time. Nitsuki Subaru looked expressionlessly at the 3 thugs lying scattered on the ground, his breathing not even slightly disturbed. A fight of this level wasn't even a warm-up for him. After all, in previous dungeon instances, he had faced beasts tens of times more ferocious than these thugs. So, dealing with ordinary people like this was simply a piece of cake. If he hadn't deliberately held back, with his strength attribute exceeding an ordinary person's by more than tenfold, one punch would have been enough to kill them on the spot. Thinking this, Nitsuki Subaru was about to leave when Priscilla's voice suddenly came from behind. Hold on. Ghostpatreon.com/walnutchin. 7 comments 0 vote. You foolish commoners, the world revolves around me. Is there anything else? Although Nitsuki Subaru didn't want to bother with Priscilla, upon hearing her undeniable summons, he unconsciously stopped and slowly turned to face her. Since you have dealt with these commoners, you should rightly bow in submission and offer songs of praise to me. Priscilla elegantly lifted her chin, her slender fingers gently brushing through the orangered strands of hair that fell upon her shoulder, every gesture exuding the unique grace of nobility. Huh, what are you talking about? Hearing this, Nitsuki Subaru looked at Priscilla, somewhat speechless, and said, logically speaking, I was the one who saved you. If I hadn't intervened in time, you'd still be entangled with these guys. You should be the one thanking me, right? Seriously, what kind of logic does this woman have? I helped her, so how did it turn into me having to thank her? This level of narcissism is simply off the charts. Make no mistake, even without your unnecessary meddling, I would not have suffered the slightest harm. Priscilla slightly raised her chin, her red lips curling into an alluring arc. It just so happened that you dealt with some insignificant little trouble for me. Priscilla stated this as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. The confidence and arrogance that flowed from her every move were so natural that they left one unable to refute, yet simultaneously wanting to retort. This woman is simply arrogant beyond measure. Nitsuki Subaru looked at Priscilla, who shone as dazzlingly as the sun, and was utterly convinced of this. This is definitely a troublesome person one shouldn't easily provoke. Thinking this, Nitsuki Subaru pursed his lips and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. It seems you still don't understand. The world itself will look out for me, it will never allow me to fall into true danger. Priscilla straightened her proud figure, and her right hand suddenly drew a gilded folding fan from the unfathomable valley of her chest. Hey, wait a minute. Where did she pull that fan out from? Is that place a four-dimensional pocket? Nitsuki Subaru's eye twitched as he retorted wildly in his mind. An unquestionable light flickered in Priscilla's ruby-like eyes as she elegantly unfurled the fan, the exquisite blood-red rose pattern on its surface shimmering brilliantly in the sunlight. Today's events were merely an amusing sideshow arranged for me by fate. Priscilla fanned herself lightly, her tone so matter-of-fact it was infuriating. This level of self-talk is too exaggerated. Does she really think the whole world revolves around her? Nitsuki Subaru's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Fighting back the urge to retort on the spot, he could only say helplessly, "Fine, say whatever you want. See, this is my trouble. As soon as I appear, these commoners pounce on me like starving wolves. It's truly bothersome." As she spoke, Priscilla deliberately puffed out her impressive chest. Her well-tailored crimson dress swayed slightly with her movements, gleaming gorgeously in the sunlight. Is that so? Nitsuki Subaru was already too tired to retort. There were simply too many things to criticize about Priscilla. Arrogant, conceited, disdainful, he really couldn't find more fitting words to describe her. In a way, her extreme egocentrism made it difficult to know how to even argue. The world revolves around me, this is the truth. Priscilla took a step forward, her red eyes looking directly at Nitsuki Subaru. You really just say whatever you want, don't you? Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but roll his eyes dramatically. Priscilla's, "I am the only one that matters" demeanor was as if the entire world was her private backyard. But then again, while Priscilla's catchphrase, "the world revolves around me," sounded outrageously arrogant to others, anyone who understood her abilities would know it wasn't mere conceit. It was known that Priscilla possessed the powerful, divine protection of the sun. During the day, this protection provided her with all-around enhancements: keen eyesight, extraordinary hearing, and agile thinking. Even more magically, under the sunlight, others would unconsciously feel a subtle sense that they couldn't really do anything to her. Only when she slept at night was she at her weakest. Not only that, but Priscilla also wielded one of the world's 10 famous swords, the Yang sword. This sentient treasure chose its master, its scabbard made of air, allowing it to be summoned or dismissed at any time. With this sword, Priscilla could precisely incinerate any target, such as directly igniting a person's heart without harming other parts of their body. It was with this ability that she had saved her people many times. From this perspective, all things in the world indeed revolve around the sun. Thus, Priscilla's belief that the world revolved around her had a reasonable explanation. This wasn't Chunabu, it was her innate attribute, dazzling, yet deadly. Nitsuki Subaru thought to himself as he looked at the beautiful and captivating Priscilla before him. Being the center of such attention can't be helped. Priscilla noticed Nitsuki Subaru's gaze and deliberately puffed out her ample chest, making her proud curves even more prominent. After all, my beauty is a sin committed by the gods. Nitsuki Subaru felt a dark line form on his forehead as he retorted wildly in his heart. This woman's way of thinking is simply invincible. Of course, speaking impartially, in terms of appearance alone, Priscilla was indeed breathtakingly beautiful. Her delicate features, proud figure, and the charm she exuded with every move were hard to ignore. Especially those eye-catching, full curves, which made it difficult not to notice. However, these external charms meant nothing to Nitsuki Subaru. He really wanted nothing to do with such an extremely narcissistic and arrogant woman. Although you are but a nameless nobody, Priscilla tapped her chin with her gilded fan, her red lips slightly parted. In light of the courage you displayed just now, I shall give you a chance to bow your head in submission. Then, narrowing her ruby-like, brilliant eyes, she added, well. Is there nothing you wish to say? Are you serious, you? Nitsuki Subaru sighed, pressing his forehead, looking completely exasperated at the self-satisfied woman before him. Speak. What reward do you desire? I can satisfy you. Priscilla narrowed her ruby-like, brilliant eyes with great interest, looking Nitsuki Subaru up and down. She deliberately drew out her words. This seemingly ordinary black-haired young man has some skills, and to recognize my identity in a place like this, he does have some discernment. If he were willing to submit to me, taking him as an attendant wouldn't be out of the question, Priscilla mused. I don't need it. Nitsuki Subaru refused decisively, without a hint of hesitation. He had no interest whatsoever in an arrogant woman like Priscilla. Is that really so? It's rare for me to feel a bit of interest. If you wish to touch my body, it's not entirely out of the question. You know, Priscilla crossed her arms, a movement that made her already full chest even more prominent, the snow-white skin beneath her deep V-neckline faintly visible. Priscilla, beautiful as a flower, truly believes any man would be seduced by her beauty. What a pitiful and sad way of thinking. Although Priscilla was indeed strikingly beautiful with an impressive figure, Nitsuki Subaru already had Rem and Amelia, Two beautiful girls, in his heart, and would absolutely not be easily swayed by the beauty before him. What? Stunned speechless by my beauty. Seeing Nitsuki Subaru remain silent, Priscilla couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt, looking at him with suspicion. Don't think I'll be seduced by your beauty. Nitsuki Subaru first met Priscilla's gaze directly, his tone firm. I do not dislike the desire in your eyes. Priscilla chuckled softly, her fan lightly covering her lips, her gaze full of allure as she pressed on, well. Care to change your mind? I have to say, the terms you're offering are indeed very tempting. Nitsuki Subaru said, under Priscilla's expectant gaze, then added without hesitation, but, I refuse. What kind of joke is this? You'd have to be a fool to believe a woman like her. Who knows if touching Priscilla's body wouldn't get me burned to ashes by her yang sword. Ahem. Of course, I don't have such thoughts myself. You, truly surprise me. Priscilla snapped her fan shut with a paw, her ruby-like eyes widening slightly, seemingly not expecting such a blunt refusal. Goodbye. Nitsuki Subaru said no more and turned to leave. Wait. Priscilla quickly chased him to the alley in trance, her skirt fluttering. At this moment, Rem walked over carrying a bag of fresh fruit. Seeing Priscilla beside Nitsuki Subaru, a hint of confusion flashed in her blue eyes. Subaru-kun, this young lady is a passerby, Nitsuki Subaru said faintly. How dare you slight me so? Priscilla frowned unhappily, her delicate eyebrows knitting together as she snapped her gilded fan shut. What happened? Rem looked at Nitsuki Subaru in confusion. It's nothing important, don't worry about it. Nitsuki Subaru waved his hand and, taking the opportunity, put his arm around Rem's shoulder, intending to lead her away. Anyway, it was just casually taking down a few thugs and unexpectedly meeting Priscilla, one of the arrogant royal candidates. Nothing really worth mentioning in detail. But this woman's level of troublesomeness is truly beyond imagination. I see. Rem nodded obediently but still couldn't help stealing a glance at the lavishly dressed strange woman. Hold on. Priscilla gracefully moved in front of them, her scarlet skirt blooming like a petal. Then, looking at the paper bag Rem was holding, she inquired, what's in that bag? Let me see. Rem hesitated, looking at Nitsuki Subaru. After receiving his tacit approval, she opened the paper bag, revealing several plump, bright red apples. I still don't understand. Priscilla gently poked at the fruit with the tip of her fan, her brow furrowed. What exactly is this fruit? Isn't this just an apple? Seeing this, Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but retort, the fruit of wisdom. Don't tell me you've never seen one. Absurd. Priscilla blinked upon hearing this, then snorted lightly. Apples are clearly white fruit. How could they have such a bright red appearance? Isn't it white once you peel it? Nitsuki Subaru retorted impatiently. Hey, don't tell me you've only ever seen peeled apples. Priscilla's expression suddenly froze. After a moment, she slowly nodded. Indeed, I have only ever seen fruit prepared on the dining table. As expected. This pampered noble lady probably doesn't even know what fruit originally looks like. Thinking this, and not wanting to waste more words, Nitsuki Subaru casually picked the reddest apple from the bag and tossed it to Priscilla. Here, for you. Priscilla caught it gracefully, her long fingers gently caressing the skin. Then, she took a demure, small bite. Sweet and sour, just right. It indeed tastes like an apple. You weren't lying. Commendable. Alright, if you're satisfied, then goodbye. Nitsuki Subaru turned to leave. Hold on. Priscilla suddenly spoke. You haven't told me your name yet. Hey, you're only just now thinking to ask my name. Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but roll his eyes. I permit you to state your name. Priscilla said, as if it were a matter of course. Fine, telling you is no big deal. Nitsuki Subaru introduced himself, my name is Nitsuki Subaru. Anyway, I'll meet Priscilla again at the next royal selection, so telling her in advance is fine. Nitsuki Subaru. I shall remember it. Priscilla softly repeated the name. Just like that, Nitsuki Subaru and Rem turned and left. Watching their retreating figures, Priscilla murmured softly. An interesting man. Just then, an extremely luxurious dragon carriage slowly pulled up beside her. The carriage body was exquisitely carved and covered in gold leaf decorations, glittering brilliantly in the sunlight. The wheels were inlaid with various gemstones, and the two red earth dragons pulling it were draped in magnificent furs. The reins and harnesses were all meticulously designed, every detail proclaiming the owner's noble status. Princess. A man wearing a pitch-black full-face helmet bowed respectfully. He was clad in a cheap cloak and clothes made of coarse cloth, yet a finely crafted azure dragon saber hung at his waist. Waiting at the place I was headed. Quite astute of you. Priscilla nodded in satisfaction. Commendable, Al. To be honest, the feeling of coincidentally and accidentally getting lost is undeniable, but saying so would displease the princess, which is really troublesome. It's better to just agree for now. Al scratched his helmet, then, realizing this might displease Priscilla, quickly corrected himself. Yes, just as the princess says. Priscilla elegantly boarded the dragon carriage. The interior was lined with velvet cushions, and the scent of incense lingered in the air. Al noticed the half-eaten apple in her hand and asked in surprise, Princess, are you eating an unpeeled apple? That's right. So this is what an unpeeled apple looks like. Priscilla thoughtfully twirled the apple in her hand, sunlight streaming through the carriage window, casting dappled shadows on its skin. Ghostpatreon.com/walnutchin. 3 comments 0 vote. Caring for lonely Betty, a world where strength reigns supreme. Because the princess usually eats apples that are peeled, cut into pieces, and placed on a silver platter. Faced with Priscilla's confusion, Al explained somewhat helplessly, his voice carrying a hint of amusement from beneath the pitch-black full-face helmet. Very well. Purchase more apples from now on, Al. Priscilla's command came from within the carriage. I desire this kind, whole apples. As you command, Princess, Al replied respectfully. Then, keenly noticing that Priscilla seemed to be in a particularly good mood today, he couldn't help but ask curiously, however, is the princess in an especially good mood today? Priscilla took a small bite of the apple, the crystalline juice moistening her crimson lips. I encountered an interesting fellow. Oh. Al's interest was piqued, his eyes under the pitch-black full-face helmet glinting with curiosity. For the princess to find someone interesting, they must not be an ordinary person. Just a black-haired brat who doesn't know his place. Priscilla's red lips curved slightly, her gilded fan lightly covering the corner of her mouth. Not only did he dare to look me in the eyes while speaking, but he even refused the reward I bestowed upon him. Although the princess's thoughts are always so. Al subconsciously scratched his helmet, his fingers making a slight sound as they brushed against the metal. But speaking of which, black-haired people are indeed quite rare in this world. Al. Priscilla suddenly tapped his iron helmet with her fan with a thwack, the crisp metallic sound echoing in the carriage. You've said a bit too much today. My apologies, Princess. Al chuckled sheepishly, his voice sounding somewhat muffled through the iron mask. A gentle breeze blew past, carrying the distant clamor of the marketplace, mixed with the calls of fruit vendors. Priscilla gazed at the flowing scenery outside the window, her crimson eyes slightly narrowed. For some reason, a strong premonition welled up within her. That black-haired young man would soon appear before her again. Next time we meet, Priscilla murmured to herself, I will make him understand that arousing my interest is his greatest honor. The carriage continued onward, carrying the arrogant princess in her rare good mood towards the royal capital. Rosewall's mansion. Inside the forbidden library, the great spirit with blonde twintails sat on a high stool, her fingertips gently turning a yellowed page. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass window, casting dappled shadows on the floor, yet she inexplicably felt that the forbidden library was particularly empty today. It feels like something is missing. Beatrice closed the book, her gaze unconsciously drifting towards the door. Usually, around this time, that black-haired young man would always burst in suddenly, shouting with a grin, Betty, I'm here. Then, without taking no for an answer, he would drag her off to do some boring things. Hide and seek, tea parties, or even just sitting beside her, chattering endlessly about meaningless observations. It's truly strange, why would I think of that annoying human now? Beatrice frowned, her fingertips unconsciously caressing the book in her hands. Clearly, that black-haired young man was noisy and annoying, always disturbing her peace. He even trespassed into her forbidden library without her permission, clinging on like an ill-mannered stray cat. But yet only he wasn't after Betty's power, nor the knowledge of the forbidden library, but simply wanted Betty to play with him. Such a strange human. Thinking this, Beatrice couldn't help but murmur to herself. For 400 years, she had long grown accustomed to solitude. The doors of the forbidden library had long since isolated her from the outside world, she should have felt at ease. But now, in the empty library, there was only the rustling of pages turning, no boisterous laughter from the boy, no exaggerated gestures, and no sickeningly sweet snacks he would force upon her. Why does Betty feel unaccustomed to this? Beatrice pursed her lips, an inexplicable anxiety welling up inside her. It had never been like this before. Is it because only Betty and that red-haired maid are left in the mansion? Beatrice unconsciously mumbled to herself. Speaking of which, it's been 5 days since they left, hasn't it? A knock on the door interrupted Beatrice's thoughts. Beatrice-sama, Ram's voice came from outside the door. Quote. Come in, Beatrice replied sullenly. Ram pushed the door open and entered. Although the forbidden library's door crossing could connect to any door in the mansion, Beatrice also maintained a fixed entrance. Otherwise, if the twin maids had to try every door each time to find her, it would be too absurd. Beatrice-sama, it's time for lunch. Ram held the all-too-familiar silver tray. Beatrice glanced up, her eye twitching slightly. Quote. Sweet potatoes again. Yes. Ram nodded, her expression unchanged. Today's sweet potatoes are steamed especially soft. Please enjoy. Beatrice stared at the plate of sweet potatoes, her mind involuntarily replaying the scenes from the past few days. Good morning, Beatrice-sama. This is steamed sweet potato for breakfast. Betty knows, just leave it there. It's time for lunch, Beatrice-sama. I'll leave the utensils outside. Quote. Understood. Beatrice-sama, it's dinner time. What is it? Steamed sweet potato. Steamed sweet potatoes are not bad. Good morning, Beatrice-sama. Today's sweet potatoes have been specially steamed for you. Initially, when Beatrice first tasted sweet potatoes, she found them novel. But several consecutive days of repetition had made Beatrice completely lose interest. Although, as a spirit, Beatrice didn't need to rely on food to sustain her life, she usually thoroughly enjoyed the exquisite desserts and afternoon tea prepared by Rem. When the same conversation looped to the present, Beatrice finally couldn't bear it anymore. Enough is enough. Betty's patience has its limits. What's wrong, Beatrice-sama? Ram blinked her wine-red eyes, asking with a composed expression. Betty remembers eating sweet potatoes yesterday, the day before that, and even earlier. Every single meal, Betty ate sweet potatoes. By the end, Beatrice practically squeezed the words through gritted teeth. My apologies, Beatrice-sama. Ram only knows how to make this. Ram replied calmly. Does she? Quote. Beatrice fell silent for a moment, then raised her voice. Honestly, the maids of the Rosewall mansion don't even know basic cooking. When Rem was here, she indeed prepared more varied meals, Ram responded, her expression unchanged. But now, with only Ram, ensuring the food isn't burnt is already the limit. Quote. Beatrice looked at Ram, and Ram calmly looked back. The air between them seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Finally, Beatrice sighed as if deflated. Quote. Never mind, just leave it there. Understood, Beatrice-sama. Enjoy your meal. After putting down the tray, Ram retreated. With the soft click of the door closing, the forbidden library was once again enveloped in silence. Beatrice's gaze unconsciously drifted to the door, as if in a daze, seemingly expecting that figure who always trespassed to suddenly appear as usual. He's clearly gone to the royal capital, it's impossible for him to be back so soon. Beatrice muttered to herself, then, as if startled by her own thoughts, shook her head violently. Wait, is Betty thinking about him? No. Why would Betty think such a thing? I'm definitely not thinking about that rude fellow. Beatrice defiantly held the book up in front of her face but found she couldn't concentrate at all. Logically, with that noisy human gone, she should be enjoying some rare peace and quiet. But why does Betty feel this indescribable emptiness in her heart? Beatrice stared at the plate of steaming sweet potatoes and suddenly realized. She seemed to miss the exquisite desserts made by the blue-haired maid a little. No, perhaps what she missed wasn't just the desserts. Quote. Honestly. Beatrice buried her face in her book, her voice as light as a sigh. Hurry up and come back to Betty. Night in the royal capital, the inn-room brightly lit. Natsuki Subaru, Rosewall, and Amelia were gathered around a round table, with Rem standing quietly to the side. As Amelia's knight, Natsuki Subaru had been accompanying Amelia and Rosewall to meet with the nobles of the royal capital for the past few days. To be precise, they were trying to win allies for the upcoming royal selection. However, the reality was not very optimistic. Amelia's half-elf identity, and her resemblance to the Witch of Envy, put her at a clear disadvantage among the royal candidates. Everyone has worked so hard these past few days. Amelia raised her head slightly, Her amethyst eyes filled with sincere gratitude, her gaze finally resting on Natsuki Subaru. Especially Subaru, for always accompanying me to visit the nobles. This is my duty as a knight. Besides, being able to stroll around with a cute girl like Emiliatan, how could that be tiring? Others would beg for such a good opportunity. Natsuki Subaru grinned, showing his signature cheerful smile, half-joking. Emilia is still so gentle. She's clearly under the most pressure, yet she always thinks of others first. Honestly. Emilia couldn't help but let out a light laugh, a faint blush appearing on her fair cheeks. Emilia-sama, please don't worry too much, Rosewall interjected at the right moment, his face bearing his trademark clownish smile. Those far-sighted nobles in the royal capital are very optimistic about your potential, they Spia, king of which, Subaru said, turning his gaze to Rosewall, Emilia being able to participate in the royal selection, your support must have been indispensable, Rosewall. It's known that Rosewall went to great lengths to get Emilia into the royal selection. Of course, Rosewall's motives aren't pure. To be precise, Rosewall wants to help Emilia become queen to achieve his own crazy plan of slaying the divine dragon and resurrecting the witch Echidna. Rosewall bowed slightly, his clown makeup particularly striking under the lights. This is all because the dragon insignia acknowledged its master, granting Emilia-sama the qualification. That's indeed true. Natsuki Subaru pretended to agree, though he knew very well that without strong backing, Emilia would probably have had difficulty even entering the royal capital. Although the dragon insignia's acknowledgement meant one was qualified to run, just like Felt, who came from the slums, could also gain candidacy because of it. But without the support of a powerful individual like the Sword Saint Reinhard, Felt wouldn't be able to truly participate in the royal selection. Similarly, if not for the full support of Margrave Rosewall, Emilia probably wouldn't even have had the chance to step onto this stage. After all, Rosewall was the court magician, known in the kingdom of Lugnica as the chief court magician. He possessed extremely high attainments in magic and mana, and was granted the titles of Red, Green, and Yellow by the kingdom of Lugnica. In the end, this world is still all about power. Thinking this, Natsuki Subaru looked at Rosewall and asked directly, so, Rosewall, you've gathered everyone tonight to discuss Emilia's participation in tomorrow's Royal Selection Council meeting. Precisely so, Rosewall drew out his tone, his mismatched eyes glinting strangely in the candlelight. At tomorrow's Royal Selection Council meeting, the Sage Council will primarily examine Emilia-sama's qualifications as a candidate, if we act rashly without a thorough plan. He paused deliberately here. The consequences could be quite severe, especially considering Emilia-sama's special identity issue. The air in the room seemed to freeze instantly. The candlelight flickered restlessly, casting dancing shadows on everyone's faces. Emilia unconsciously clenched the fabric of her skirt, her silver hair particularly striking in the dim light. Everyone knew. Emilia's silver hair and Halfelf features inevitably linked her to that forbidden name, Satella. The witch who had nearly destroyed the world 400 years ago was still the greatest taboo in the kingdom of Lugnica. This baseless association filled the populace with irrational prejudice and fear towards Emilia. In the royal selection, this was undoubtedly a fatal disadvantage. If she couldn't even gain the support of the Sage Council, let alone win the approval of the common people, even with the Dragon Insignia's certification, it would likely be difficult to turn the situation around in the face of such strong opposition. So, what specific countermeasures are we taking? Natsuki Subaru looked directly at Rosewall, his gaze like a torch. He was sure that since Rosewall had brought up this issue, he must have already prepared a solution. GhostPatreon.com/Walnutchin. 1 comments 0 vote. Its name, The Power of Protection. Among the 5 royal selection candidates, Emilia-sama's greatest disadvantage is that she reminds people of that forbidden existence, causing the populace to instinctively keep their distance. Rosewall elegantly clasped his hands, then continued speaking to everyone. Therefore, we need to display some special power before everyone. Power. Natsuki Subaru keenly caught this keyword, and understanding immediately dawned on him. If I remember correctly, Rosewall intends to use Puck's power as the beast of the end of the eternal frost to intimidate those arrogant members of the Sage Council. Sometimes, an appropriate display of strength is the most effective language. Rosewall meaningfully drew out his tone, his mismatched eyes turning to Puck on Emilia's shoulder. For example, letting those esteemed adults witness the might of a great spirit. I understand. Natsuki Subaru looked at Rosewall and slowly began to speak, You want everyone to witness the power of Puck, who is contracted to Amelia, to make them remember that she possesses strength beyond imagination. This is indeed one of Amelia's greatest advantages. Frankly, this wasn't a bad move. As the Great Spirit contracted to Amelia, Puck's title as the Beast of the End of the Eternal Frost was not just for show. This immense power itself was the most potent political bargaining chip. Subaru-kun is indeed thinking seriously. After all, Emilia-sama is too focused on her ideals, to the point of exhausting herself mentally and physically. Gazing at Nitsuki Subaru, Rosewall's mismatched eyes twinkled with approval, and a meaningful smile touched the corners of his lips. Initially, I just thought this young man was different. Now, it seems his intelligence and courage far exceed expectations. Rosewall couldn't help but recall the prophecy in the Book of Wisdom: a visitor from another world would correct the distorted world. Such a young man is perfectly suited to be the child of prophecy. 400 years of waiting, 400 years of scheming, and finally, a glimmer of hope is visible. At this thought, a flicker of fanaticism flashed in Rosewall's mismatched pupils. You want me to make an appearance? Puck, who had been lazily draped over Amelia's shoulder, suddenly perked up, his round eyes shining with excitement. It's been a while since I stretched my legs, meow. Amelia's amethyst-like eyes widened in surprise as she looked at Rosewall. Wait, are you saying you want Puck to display his power in front of the Sage Council? Precisely so, Emilia-sama. Rosewall bowed elegantly, then looked at Puck floating in midair. I wonder if the Great Spirit-sama has any objections to this. None at all. Oh, Puck playfully did a twirl, but the sharpness in his eyes grew even keener. He floated in front of Amelia, gently rubbing his furry head against her cheek. As long as it's Leah's wish, even turning the entire royal capital into an ice sculpture is no problem. Of course, just kidding, meow. But, Amelia bit her lower lip, her silver hair flowing like water as she shook her head uneasily. Having Puck display his power in front of everyone, wouldn't that be too ostentatious? I don't want to use such a method too. Amelia. Nitsuki Subaru softly interrupted Amelia, his deep eyes meeting hers directly. Sometimes, people can only truly let go of their prejudices when they witness strength firsthand. This isn't a threat, it's about letting them recognize your true worth. After all, in this world where the strong devour the weak, ideals unsupported by formidable strength are ultimately just empty talk. Nitsuki Subaru understood this principle better than anyone. It's quite ironic, actually. In the original story, Rosewall never intended to discuss Puck's appearance with Subaru, who was merely a servant. And now, as her knight, I finally have the qualification to participate in decision-making. Subarukun's thoughts, indeed align with mine. Rosewall looked at Nitsuki Subaru, his mismatched eyes casting a strange, flickering light. Strength is often the most powerful language. Leah, as long as it's your wish, I'll do my utmost to make it happen. Puck floated lightly in front of Amelia, affectionately rubbing his furry head against her cheek and winking playfully. Besides, isn't it interesting to let those arrogant fools witness the majesty of the Beast of the End of the Eternal Frost? Puck, Subaru. Amelia looked at the concerned gazes of her companions, a hint of wavering in her amethyst-like eyes. Finally, Amelia nodded gently. If this is everyone's decision, I understand. Amelia, I will be your staunchest supporter. I will protect you whenever and wherever. Nitsuki Subaru looked at Amelia with a steadfast gaze, frankly speaking his heart's feelings. When I first transmigrated to this world, my approach to Amelia might have been tinged with some selfishness. Back then, I was just a stranger seeking shelter. But now, looking at this silver-haired girl who always thinks of others, watching her persist in her ideals even in the most difficult circumstances, Nitsuki Subaru's heart had long since changed. He wanted to help Amelia participate in the royal selection, wanted to protect her by her side. These thoughts were no longer out of any utilitarian purpose. Instead, he simply wanted to protect this purity, to protect this kind soul who always thought of others. More importantly, Nitsuki Subaru had to prevent the tragic cycles from those memories from repeating. Those past events interwoven with blood and tears, the pain of losing important people, he would absolutely not allow them to happen again. Quote. Amelia's amethyst eyes quivered slightly, her cherry lips parting as if she wanted to say something. This is youth, such passion, I no longer possess it now. Rosewall's face, adorned with clown makeup, showed a slight stunned look for a moment. He gazed silently at Nitsuki Subaru for a beat, then gently raised the corners of his lips. When everyone looked at him again, his expression had returned to normal, but his gaze towards Nitsuki Subaru seemed to carry a hint more of an inscrutable depth. Then, it's settled. To increase Emilia-sama's chances of winning, Rosewall stood up gracefully, a sharp glint in his mismatched eyes. At tomorrow's Royal Selection Council meeting, let everyone witness the power of the beast of the end of the eternal frost. Puck. Amelia called out softly, and the small gray cat immediately nuzzled her cheek affectionately. Don't worry, Leah. Puck's small, furry paw gently rested on Amelia's fingertips as he said tenderly, I'll be sure to handle it properly. After all, fulfilling Leah's wishes is my most important task. Puck. Amelia smiled faintly, then turned to Nitsuki Subaru, her amethyst eyes shining with a warm light. Thank you both, for considering so much for me. Emiliatan, as your chief knight, isn't this sort of thing a matter of course? Nitsuki Subaru looked at Amelia's smile and secretly made a resolution. I must help this kind half-elf girl win the respect she deserves. In this world where strength reigns supreme, Puck's existence is the most powerful proof. Even if the Sage Council has doubts about Amelia, they will have to think twice in the face of such power. The next day, the dragon carriage slowly drove through the main gate of the royal castle. Inside the carriage, Nitsuki Subaru, Amelia, and Rosewall were each lost in their own thoughts. Today, Nitsuki Subaru was dressed in a well-tailored white knight's formal attire, looking particularly dashing and handsome. Speaking of which, this is my first time participating in a national event, Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but remark as he gazed at the gradually approaching magnificent royal palace through the window. Although this is another world, it's still a considerably important occasion. Whether in the modern world or this other world, only a school sports festival could probably compare to such a grand scene. And this was the first major event Nitsuki Subaru had participated in since coming to this other world. The dragon carriage slowly came to a halt, the wheels making a slight sound as they rubbed against the ground. We're here. Nitsuki Subaru looked through the carriage window and saw guards in armor lined up neatly like statues, their gleaming spears pointing towards the sky. Quote. Amelia unconsciously clenched the fabric of her skirt, her silver eyelashes trembling slightly. As a half-elf with an appearance similar to the witch, she had rarely been in such solemn and grand formal occasions, let alone become the center of everyone's attention. Good heavens, this spectacle is much more exaggerated than our school sports festival's opening ceremony. After making this internal comment, Nitsuki Subaru glanced at Amelia beside him and found her tightly gripping her skirt, her silver eyelashes trembling slightly, clearly extremely nervous. As expected, even Amelia gets nervous at such a grand occasion. But then again, Amelia rarely even attends village gatherings, and now she suddenly has to face the entire kingdom's nobles and knights, the pressure must be immense. Thinking this, Nitsuki Subaru deliberately leaned closer and gave Amelia a reassuring smile. Relax a bit, Emiliatan. Just think of it as participating in a super-large sports festival. Sports festival. Amelia tilted her head slightly, her silver hair cascading down like a waterfall. What is this sports festival that Subaru speaks of? That, Nitsuki Subaru chuckled, scratching the back of his head. It's like the royal capital's liveliest harvest festival, with performances, competitions, and people everywhere. In short, there are a lot of people. I see. Amelia's amethyst eyes sparkled with curiosity. Does Subaru often participate in such activities? Of course. Nitsuki Subaru nodded, then suddenly lowered his voice and leaned closer to Amelia mysteriously. By the way, let me tell you a secret. Later, when you're giving your speech at the Royal Selection Council meeting, if you get nervous, just imagine everyone in the audience as round pumpkins. I guarantee you won't be nervous anymore. PK-ins. Amelia was stunned for a moment, then the comical image of nobles with pumpkin heads sitting upright flashed in her mind. She couldn't help but giggle, quickly covering her mouth with her delicate hand. Subaru always comes up with such interesting ideas. As long as it works. Seeing Amelia's tense shoulders finally relax, Nitsuki Subaru said gently, remember, no matter what happens, I'll be by your side. Amelia took a deep breath, the anxiety in her eyes gradually replaced by determination. With Subaru here, I really don't feel so scared anymore. Are you ready? Nitsuki Subaru gestured towards the window. It's time to let those bigwigs see what the true style of a royal selection candidate is. I'll do my best, Amelia replied softly. Afterward, Nitsuki Subaru, Emilia, and Rosewall disembarked from the dragon carriage one after another and stepped into the long corridor leading to the throne hall. The walls on both sides were adorned with precious paintings and works of art, and fully armed guards stood with swords at the ready, their sharp gazes constantly following them. In front of the gilded main doors, a general of about 40 years stood imposingly, his appearance more stern than rugged. His rock-carved face carried a severe aura, conveying that he was a battle-hardened soldier. "We have been awaiting you, Roswell-sama." The general stepped forward, performing a standard noble's bow, his gaze then briefly lingering on Emilia and Nitsuki Subaru. "This is the royal selection candidate I am recommending, Emilia-sama." Rosewall returned the bow gracefully, then introduced, and next to her is her knight, Nitsuki Subaru. "Understood. Everyone is already waiting in the hall. Please enter as soon as possible." The general stepped aside, and the heavy main doors slowly swung open. When Nitsuki Subaru and Emilia's party stepped onto the crimson carpet, the full view of the magnificent hall unfolded before them. Gilded walls and dazzling crystal chandeliers complemented each other, but the most eye-catching feature was the throne on the high platform at the far end. 11 seats were arranged in a fan shape, and behind the highest throne in the center, a lifelike dragon relief guarded the majesty of royal power. "So this is the royal palace, even grander than I imagined." Nitsuki Subaru looked around, sighing softly. Although he was used to modern skyscrapers, the exotic architecture before him still filled him with a sense of novelty, like a tourist stepping into the White House for the first time with excitement and curiosity. In stark contrast to the heavily guarded exterior, there were no fully armed soldiers in the main hall. Instead, there were royal guards in pure white uniforms. The swords at their waists gleamed coldly, and every standard military posture displayed the dignity of an elite force. Further in, civil officials in ornate robes gathered in small groups. Judging by their exquisite attire and composed conversation, these were all influential figures in the kingdom. And in the deliberately cleared area in the center of the hall, several special figures stood out. Especially that orange-haired young woman, it was Priscilla, who didn't even recognize an apple. "Huh. It's him." As Nitsuki Subaru's group passed through the doors, Priscilla's wine-red eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of amusement in them. Before Nitsuki Subaru could take a closer look, all present have assembled. Next, the Sage Council will now enter. A resonant announcement echoed throughout the hall. Ghostpatreon.com/walnutchin. 4 comments 0 vote. Really afraid someone will suddenly say, "It's all the stars' fault." With the heavy doors opening once more, several elderly men dressed in ornate robes slowly entered, led by fully armed knights. The elders were all attired in formal wear befitting their status and the venue. Even from their gait and demeanor, one could sense their dignity and profound experience. Among them, the most eye-catching was an elderly man with a long beard that almost reached the ground. Although his figure was upright, he was a head shorter than Nitsuki Subaru. His wrinkled face showed the marks of time, but his eyes were as sharp as blades, their keenness unconcealed. "That beard, is he serious? Isn't he afraid of tripping over it while walking?" Nitsuki Subaru stared at the white-haired and white-bearded elder, unable to resist muttering a quiet retort. "That is the representative of the Sage Council, Lord Miklatov, who holds the most sway in the currently kingless kingdom of Lugnica." Rosewall lowered his voice, explaining to Nitsuki Subaru in his signature peculiar tone. "I remember the Sage Council is the organization that governs the country in place of the king, right?" Nitsuki Subaru nodded thoughtfully. As a transmigrator, with the help of Ram and Rem recently, he had gradually mastered the writing of this world and had seriously studied the kingdom's political system. The Sage Council of the Kingdom of Lugnica was composed of the kingdom's most prestigious nobles. During the royal selection period, they effectively held the reins of the state, responsible for policymaking and adjudicating major affairs. Nominally, it's an advisory body, but in reality, the country's operation indeed relies on the Sage Council. Rosewall shrugged, uttering rather disrespectful words. After all, since the time of the previous king, the actual power of the country has always been in the hands of the Sage Council. So, even when the royal family still existed, the Sage Council retained considerable actual power. Is this a kind of power balancing mechanism? Nitsuki Subaru keenly noted the key information in Rosewall's words, stroking his chin. Clever. Rosewall blinked his mismatched eyes appreciatively, then continued slowly, "They not only oversee the royal selection process, but also have decisive power over candidate qualifications and election rules, directly influencing the succession to the throne." That's some serious power they have, Nitsuki Subaru couldn't help but comment. If Emilia wants to become queen, doesn't she have to get past this group of old men first? Thinking about it carefully, the Sage Council not only holds administrative power and dominance over the royal selection but also possesses temporary ruling authority, practically consolidating all power in their hands. So then, Rosewall smiled meaningfully. If one wishes to establish a foothold in Lugnica, gaining the approval of the Sage Council is even more important than currying favor with any particular royal candidate. This is really troublesome. Nitsuki Subaru let out a light sigh, his mind already calculating. With the Sage Council holding so much power, Emilia's path to election will be even more difficult. Emilia-sama, the council is about to begin. Please proceed to the center. Rosewall turned and gestured to Emilia. Don't worry, we're here, Emiliaden. Nitsuki Subaru winked at Emilia, offering an encouraging smile. Quote. Emilia nodded gently and walked towards the central position with steady steps. The royal selection is about to begin. Nitsuki Subaru's gaze followed Emilia's figure, then swept forward. On the semicircularly arranged seats, the elders of the Sage Council had already taken their places one by one. Only the throne in the center, symbolizing royal authority, remained empty, gleaming with a cold golden light under the candlelight. And before them, 4 dazzling royal candidates already stood in line. Led by Emilia, 4 girls of distinctly different styles stood in a row, like 4 brilliant jewels. Priscilla, standing in the center with her hands on her hips, proudly puffed out her chest, the hem of her pure red dress swaying. Even standing before the sages who guided the nation, her expression showed no sign of wavering. To Priscilla's right was a woman dressed in attire resembling a military uniform. Her hair color was a very deep shade, close to ink black, but upon closer inspection, one would see it was a green that radiated a lustrous sheen. The ends of her long hair were tied up with a white butterfly knot, and her beautiful yet dignified face stared straight ahead. Her height was considerable for a woman, about the same as Nitsuki Subaru's, but the length of her thighs was vastly different. A sword hung at her waist, engraved with the family crest of a lion bearing its fangs, a beauty who fit the description of a handsome woman in men's attire. And the person standing to Priscilla's left, a stark contrast to the serious-looking woman just mentioned, was a light purple-haired girl who gave off a lively and cheerful impression. Her hair, reaching her back, was wavy, its soft appearance reminiscent of cotton candy. Compared to the other two, she was petite, wearing a white dress adorned with a large amount of fur. Particularly eye-catching were the white fox scarf draped over her shoulders and the comically large, double-bobbled clasp purse hanging below her waist. Each was a beauty radiating a different kind of brilliance, their presence here clearly setting them apart from ordinary people. The ones flanking Priscilla should be Crush and Anastasia. As expected, they're all youthful, beautiful girls, each with her own charm. Nitsuki Subaru's gaze shifted between the 3 royal candidates, suddenly recalling an experience from a certain if route in the original work. I remember in that world line, I actually managed to become the king of Lugnica and openly married all 5 royal candidates. It was truly reaching the pinnacle of life. It was also the only perfect ending line. The other routes either led to revenge or a complete descent into darkness, which was too tragic. Ahem. What am I thinking? Snap out of it, me. Now's not the time for such daydreams. Nitsuki Subaru shook his head violently, interrupting his wild thoughts. However, speaking of which, the ending of that if line is indeed very appealing. Just then, a hearty voice came from his side. Hey there, bro. Nitsuki Subaru turned in surprise to see an overly friendly fellow greeting him. This person wore a pitch-black full-face helmet, his remaining right hand thick and strong. He was draped in a faded brown cloak over rough linen clothes. Most strikingly, he wore Japanese-style tabi socks with sandals, yet a chillingly sharp azure dragon saber was thrust horizontally at his waist. So it's him. Priscilla's knight, Al. Based on the memories in his mind, Nitsuki Subaru immediately recognized this distinctively featured, one-armed man. As a fellow transmigrator from the modern era, Al endured a cruel life as a sword slave in the Volician Empire, not only losing his left hand but also having his face covered in scars. Now, Al serves Priscilla, always appearing with his helmet on. However, what concerned Nitsuki Subaru more was Al's special ability. It's worth mentioning that Al's ability is named victim and aggressor, and it's highly possible it's an authority. Its effect is similar to Izanami from a certain ninja anime. The activation condition requires being in an enclosed space and can only target one individual. Once activated, Al becomes the victim, and the enemy is forced to become the aggressor. In this state, the enemy must continuously fight Al, but Al cannot be truly killed. Each time Al is killed, the entire enclosed space resets to the state before the battle began, including the positions and physical conditions of both parties. Ultimately, three outcomes are possible. Al successfully kills the enemy in one of the loops, Al voluntarily deactivates the authority, or an external third party breaks the enclosed space. In this special domain, Al can force a one-on-one deathmatch with the enemy. Whether as victim or aggressor, Al has infinite chances to start over. The difference is that as the aggressor, he doesn't retain memories from before the reset, while as the victim, he can retain all memories of the loops. Simply put, this is an ability of infinite resurrection within a limited domain, the only difference being whether the opponent retains their memories. Al's ability is like a simplified version of Return by Death, just restricted to a specific domain. Looking at Al before him, Natsuki Subaru began to ponder. Although Al's ability has a limited range, this capacity for infinite resurrection within a domain is still daunting. Bro, what are you spacing out for? Al's voice interrupted Natsuki Subaru's thoughts. Ah, nothing. Natsuki Subaru came back to his senses and looked at Al, pretending it was their first meeting. Can I help you with something? Bro, you're standing in the wrong spot. Al pointed to the other side of the hall, a muffled laugh coming from within his metal helmet. We knights should line up on the left. The right side is for those civil official bigwigs. Only then did Natsuki Subaru notice the seating arrangement in the hall. On the left were the royal guards in gleaming armor, and on the right were the lavishly dressed civil officials and nobles. He had indeed accidentally wandered into the civil officials area. Thanks for the heads up. Natsuki Subaru nodded, unable to resist looking over Al's peculiar attire. But your mix and match style is really unique. It has to be said, this guy's fashion sense is too wild. Ahaha. Al laughed heartily, his single right arm patting Natsuki Subaru's shoulder forcefully. This is called personality. Compared to those stiff uniforms, I prefer to dress freely. Then, Al introduced himself. By the way, I'm Al, Priscilla's knight. Looking at your getup, bro, you must be the knight of that silver-haired half-elf, right? I am Natsuki Subaru, Amelia's exclusive first knight. Natsuki Subaru introduced himself solemnly, while secretly raising his guard. He always maintained a sense of caution when facing this fellow transmigrator from the modern era. This guy isn't suddenly going to say, it's all the star's fault, is he? Natsuki Subaru muttered in his heart, recalling Al's crazy actions in the original work. After Priscilla's death, he deliberately had the divine dragon Volcanica read his Book of the Dead to rewrite his memories, created a clone to fight Reinhard, and even sealed the original Subaru and Beatrice in a black sphere. You call me, bro, when you're pleased, and not when you're not. This damn fickle brotherhood is really something else. Thinking this, Natsuki Subaru couldn't help but retort wildly in his heart. At this moment, the elders of the Sage Council had all taken their seats, and the solemn meeting was about to begin. Al seemed to notice Natsuki Subaru's unusual gaze, his metal helmet tilting slightly. What's wrong, bro? Staring at me. Don't tell me you're stunned by my handsomeness. Handsome my foot. You've been wearing a helmet from start to finish. Natsuki Subaru rolled his eyes in annoyance and continued to retort, but, speaking of which, doesn't wearing that helmet for so long get stuffy? Ha ha ha. Al laughed upon hearing this, his empty left sleeve swaying gently with his laughter. This is my signature look. Let's go, bro, the meeting is about to start. The two walked towards the knight's procession, one after the other. Looking at Al ahead, Natsuki Subaru thought as he walked. At least, for now, this guy is still friendly. But who can say what the future holds? It's always right to be a little cautious. Arriving at the front of the Royal Guards formation, the red-haired handsome man, Reinhard, gave Natsuki Subaru a bright smile. You're here, Subaru. Of course. As Emiliadan's first knight, how could I be absent from such an occasion? Natsuki Subaru puffed out his chest and replied seriously. To be honest, sometimes I truly envy your ability to express your feelings so frankly. Your pure devotion to Lady Amelia makes even me feel inadequate, Reinhard praised with a sincere tone. Hold on. Natsuki Subaru quickly waved his hand to interrupt Reinhard. What's with such high praise? Other than shouting for your help, I don't think I've done anything particularly impressive in front of you, have I? You not only protect Lady Amelia from harm but also always make the most appropriate choices. Excessive modesty is also a virtue, or so I believe. There was no hint of falsehood in Reinhard's words, and he even gave a casual shrug. All right. Nitsuki Subaru waved his hand helplessly. I give up on you. Even your compliments are so dead serious. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Nitsuki Subaru stood beside Reinhard, with Al on his other side. Only then did he realize that the three of them were standing at the very front of the entire knightly order. This position is way too conspicuous. It's just like the front row in a classroom, always at risk of being called on by the teacher to answer a question. Just as Nitsuki Subaru was thinking this, a familiar voice called out. Miyoho, Subaru-kyun. Turning his head, he saw Felix, playfully waving at him. Although this time Felix wasn't wearing a cute dress but had changed into the pure white uniform of the Royal Guard, that slender figure, delicate face, and that pair of adorable cat ears. No matter how you look at it, he doesn't look like a boy. Long time no see, Ferris. Nitsuki Subaru smiled and greeted Felix, but couldn't help sighing inwardly. Ferris is as cute as ever. Too bad he's a boy, a boy, a boy. Just then, a young knight with purple hair gracefully walked up, and the position at the front of the small group of 5 was finally complete. Ghostpatreon.com/walnutchin. 5 comments 0 vote. Young women of various personalities, the royal selection in progress. I am Julius Juculius, of the Royal Guard Knights. The purple-haired knight bowed slightly, his amber-like eyes first looking at Nitsuki Subaru, then turning to Al. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, and yours as well, esteemed knight. Nitsuki Subaru, Lady Amelia's knight. Nitsuki Subaru introduced himself briefly. Al, came the muffled reply from beneath Al's metal mask. SOS. Subaru's internal abbreviation for, Subaru on Subaru, a self-deprecating thought about his past self. Nitsuki Subaru sized up the knight to his left, his upright posture stirring complex emotions within him. It's known that Julius, as Anastasia Hoshin's exclusive knight, is also a close friend of Reinhard and Ferris. Affiliated with the Royal Guard Knights, his family background and actual achievements have earned him the de facto second seat. He's a diligent knight, proficient in both literary and martial arts, hailed as the finest, and even Reinhard envies his outstanding knightly virtues. But what Nitsuki Subaru remembered most vividly was, in the original story's plot, Nitsuki Subaru was utterly crushed by this finest knight, Julius, completely unable to fight back. Although they later reconciled and became friends, that experience of being pinned to the ground and thrashed was truly unbearable to recall. However, things are different now. After multiple enhancements and attribute boosts from the system, my strength is a far cry from what it used to be, vastly different from the pathetic Nitsuki Subaru in the original work. If I were to really fight Julius now, the outcome would be uncertain. At this thought, a glint of confidence flashed in Nitsuki Subaru's eyes. Just then, Knight Commander Marcos ascended the high platform and announced to everyone present in a resonant voice. The esteemed members of the Sage Council and all royal selection candidates have arrived. Allow me, Marcos, Commander of the Royal Guard Knights, to preside over this council. We appreciate your efforts. Miklatov clasped his hands and nodded slightly. After a solemn bow, Marcos spoke gravely. The chain of events began half a year ago, with the successive passing of the former king and the royal bloodline. A kingdom without a monarch, for the dragon kingdom of Lugnica, is a matter that concerns the ancient covenant made with the dragon. The covenant, huh? Nitsuki Subaru silently mused. He was quite familiar with this piece of history. This sacred contract, forged 400 years ago between the last Lion King and the divine dragon Volcanica, not only bestowed upon the kingdom treasures like the dragon stones but was also celebrated in fairy tales as an oath to watch over the nation's peace until the pact's end. This covenant was indeed the cornerstone of Lugnica's prosperity, allowing the kingdom to receive the divine dragon's protection in times of crisis. Precisely because of this, maintaining the covenant is intrinsically linked to the kingdom's survival. However, it is truly deplorable that the royal bloodline was afflicted by illness. Knight Commander Marcos paused briefly, then continued, therefore, the next Dragon Miko must be decided upon as soon as possible. May we cut to the chase? The serious proceedings were interrupted by a gentle voice. The speaker was Anastasia, a purple-haired young woman in a white dress. What is it, Lady Anastasia? Marcos asked, puzzled. I understand Commanderson wishes to conclude his speech efficiently, but my affairs are also quite pressing. In Kuraragi, there's a saying, time is as precious as money, you know. Anastasia's tone was calm, her expression gentle, yet she directly stated her request. Rather than repeating words we are all too familiar with, I would prefer to hear the core reason for our summons. This. Marcos was a bit flustered by Anastasia's request, summarized in her unique dialect. She has a point. Just as murmurs of surprise spread through the throne hall, another woman's dignified voice rang out. It was Crush, the green-haired young woman, who nodded in agreement with her arms crossed. Lady Crush, for the head of the Karsten family to say such a thing, isn't it a bit? Marcos started to speak but then swallowed his words. This scene inexplicably reminded Nitsuki Subaru of school assemblies. The principal would get on stage and drone on and on with empty platitudes, making it really hard to stay interested. Thus, he deeply sympathized with the two girls' straightforwardness. Valuing propriety is certainly important, but it's also true that time is of the essence. I believe the true purpose of our summons should be stated promptly, although I have already guessed the general reason. Crush said calmly, her arms crossed. As expected of the head of the Karsten Duchy. It seems you have already discerned the meaning of this summons. Miklatov said to Crush with admiration. Lord Miklatov, is it to hold a banquet? Although we are destined to compete one day, we are not yet familiar with each other. By simply sharing a drink around a table, we can naturally come to know each other's character. Crush, with a solemn demeanor, concluded that this was preparation for a banquet, however. No, that is not the case, Miklatov quickly interrupted. That rebuttal came way too fast. Witnessing this, Nitsuki Subaru almost burst out laughing. Crush's brow furrowed slightly, and she turned to look at Felix. Ferris, this is different from what you told me. Meow, how mean. Felix playfully stuck out his tongue. Ferris just said there might be a banquet, that's all. This guy is definitely doing it on purpose. Looking at Felix's feigned innocence and cuteness, Nitsuki Subaru was convinced he had intentionally misled Crush. I see, I was too presumptuous. Crush took a deep breath and faced the assembly again. My apologies, please allow me to retract my previous statement. Even if Miss Crush retracts her statement, my stance won't change. Oh, Anastasia clapped her hands lightly, looking around at the other royal candidates. At this point, everyone is well aware of the superficial circumstances of the royal selection, aren't they? Indeed. Crush, in her smart military uniform, crossed her arms and nodded in agreement. HMPH, Priscilla lazily toyed with the fan in her hand, her scarlet skirt swaying like flames. She arrogantly lifted her chin. Even if I say nothing, you garrulous lot would be eager to proclaim it, no. I am merely saving myself these pointless steps. Lengthy nonsense is no different from dream talk, and dream talk is best kept for when one is asleep. Amidst the dialogue of the several arrogant royal candidate girls, Amelia timidly raised her hand. I think we should hear him out. Excuse me, but I wasn't asking for your opinion. Anastasia rudely cut off Amelia's statement. They're really not giving Amelia any consideration at all. Witnessing all this, Nitsuki Subaru frowned slightly but quickly adjusted his expression. After all, this is the first time these royal candidates are meeting. They are unfamiliar with each other and are competitors, so it's somewhat understandable for them to be confrontational. Thinking this, Nitsuki Subaru suddenly raised his arm and shouted in a louder voice, Hey, hey! I completely don't get what this royal selection is all about. Can someone give a clear explanation? The entire council hall instantly fell silent, and everyone's gaze turned towards him. Oh my, Nitsuki Subaru immediately switched to a playful expression, scratching his cheek. Although I know I'm handsome, being stared at by so many people still makes me shy. After all, for an outsider like me, this royal selection of yours is truly a complete mystery. He deliberately clowned around, secretly planning to at least share some of the pressure on Amelia and make everyone pay some attention to what Amelia had to say. Lady Amelia, is this your knight? Miklatov asked, looking at Amelia. Yes, Subaru is indeed my knight, Amelia nodded and replied softly. HMPH, Priscilla waved her fan lazily, speaking with great arrogance. I have deigned to grace this place in accordance with heaven's will, you all should be grateful. Marcos, continue. Let this ignorant commoner understand how I shall reign supreme. This self-righteous woman, she talks about ordering people around as if she's bestowing a favor. Nitsuki Subaru inwardly clicked his tongue. Anastasia, seeing this, merely sighed helplessly, clearly abandoning any intention of arguing with the arrogant princess. Seeing that the situation had finally stabilized, Marcos cleared his throat and continued, although the previous discussion strayed somewhat from the topic, please allow me to reiterate the main point. The reason all you dragon Mycos have gathered here is because a new prophecy has appeared on the dragon stones. When Lugnika's covenant is broken, a new leader of the dragons shall guide the nation forward. That person is naturally me. Priscilla opened the gilded fan in her hand, covering half her face, revealing only a pair of eyes filled with an arrogant smile. Such a heavenly decree, can you mortals not understand it? Marcos ignored Priscilla's comment and continued in a businesslike tone. According to the newly inscribed prophecy on the dragon stones, there are a total of 5 candidates for the new national leader. We shall select one Miko from among them to re-establish the covenant with the dragon and become the new ruler of Lugnica. These words, like a stone thrown into a calm pond, instantly caused a clamor of discussion in the Great Hall. 5 candidates. There are only 4 present now, so one is still missing. The entire country has a population of 50 million. To find 4 candidates within half a year is already quite astonishing efficiency. Nitsuki Subaru looked at Emilia and the others, pondering inwardly. Finding people in another world where communication methods haven't yet spread nationwide is an overly harsh condition. To find 4 candidates in such a short time, that alone deserves praise. However, speaking of which, the 5th candidate has actually already been found. It's Felt, from the slums. Knight Reinhard van Astria, step forward. Marcos suddenly raised his voice, his powerful and resonant tone echoing through the hall. Yes. Reinhard, who had been waiting quietly by the side, immediately responded and stepped out. Marcos stepped back to make way, and Reinhard, under the gaze of everyone present, walked to the front of the platform, his expression humble as he faced the members of the Sage Council. Esteemed members of the Sage Council, Reinhard van Astria, of the Royal Guard Knights, now reports to you all that the 5th Dragon Miko, a candidate for the throne, has been successfully found. With a heavy creaking sound, the main doors of the Great Hall were slowly pushed open. Everyone's gaze involuntarily turned towards the entrance. Felt, dressed in a gorgeous gown, slowly walked into the hall, supported by 2 maids. The hem of her light gold dress was embroidered with exquisite patterns, swaying lightly with her steps. Her small feet, clad in crystal high heels, stepped somewhat awkwardly on the carpet, clearly unaccustomed to such attire. Her ruby-like eyes, full of stubbornness, warily scanned the hall. Paired with her signature small canine tooth, she exuded a wild yet noble aura. Although meticulously dressed, her untamable personality was still evident. I never expected Felt to look quite good in a dress. Nitsuki Subaru's gaze swept over Felt, finally resting on her flat chest, and he couldn't help but make a silent, retort remark in his mind, it's just that this figure, isn't it a bit too barren? The design of the upper part of this dress practically emphasizes this flaw. Allow me to formally introduce to you all, Reinhard solemnly announced to everyone present. This is the royal candidate I have found and recommended, Lady Felt. Then, he turned to Felt and bowed respectfully. Lady Felt, I am deeply grateful for your trouble in coming here. Reinhard. Felt lifted her chin, her tone unfriendly. Yes, Reinhard responded cheerfully. Their eyes met, and in the next second. You bastard. What the hell do you think you're doing, dragging me here without explaining anything? Felt abruptly hiked up her skirt, her slender leg drawing a sharp arc. Well, this is quite a surprise. What might you be doing? Reinhard easily caught the kick aimed straight for his chin, a gentle smile still on his face. Felt is still the same as always. That's a relief. Seeing this scene, Nitsuki Subaru chuckled inwardly. Then, thinking about how Felt became a royal candidate, the sheer coincidence of it all made him marvel at the wonders of fate. Initially, it was because Felt stole Emilia's insignia that I brought Reinhard in to deal with the Bowel Hunter Elsa, which led to this encounter. If I hadn't intervened back then, Felt's candidacy might never have been discovered, and Reinhard wouldn't have become Felt's knight. Instead, he might have become Emilia's protector. Stop putting on an act. This damn place, these clothes, these people, and you. I've had enough of all of it. Felt, balancing on one foot, roughly smoothed down the hem of her dress, her face full of anger. Are you dissatisfied with this dress? I believe it suits your temperament quite well. Reinhard still maintained his polite smile. HMPH. Felt impatiently turned her head away. Her gaze suddenly lit up when she spotted Nitsuki Subaru nearby. Little bro, you're here too. Didn't I tell you before? I'm Emilia's exclusive knight now. Nitsuki Subaru shrugged, his gaze falling on Felt, who was dressed in a magnificent gown. But seriously, Felt, you actually look quite the part in this outfit. GhostPatreon.com/walnutchin